do it all the time.
I fixed it.
Yeah. That's usually me.
I thought I had it.
Okay, ready to start? We're on, great. Hi everyone, welcome to the March 7th, 2024 Northampton City Council meeting. I'm Alex Jarrett. As City Council President, I'll be presiding this evening along with Vice President Rachel Maori. This meeting and all participating in person and on Zoom will be audio and video recorded. I now call the City Council to order. Laura, could you take the roll, please?
Certainly. Okay. Councillor Dobbs.
Here.
Councillor Elkins.
Here.
Councillor Jarrett.
Here.
Councillor Labarge.
Here.
Councillor Maori.
Here.
Councillor Moulton.
Here.
Councillor Pastridge Clemmer.
Here.
Councillor Perry. Not joining yet, but expected shortly. Okay. And Councillor Rothenberg.
Here.
Council President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. So tonight's highlights include an introduction to the Agricultural Commission. We have 3 financial orders, including emergency repairs to Memorial Hall and an economic development order. We have an order temporarily suspending ordinances to allow outdoor dining on public ways. And I also wanted to address some misinformation that was out there that the ceasefire resolution that was approved on February 27th is not on the agenda and will not be discussed tonight. Next, we'll announce public hearings that are coming up. So first, we have the announcement of a public hearing about the Northampton Capital Improvement Program for fiscal year 2025 to 29. It's going to be on Thursday, March 21st. And in accordance with Article 7, Section 7.5 of the Charter, the Council will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 21st at 7 p.m. here at City Council Chambers. And we will be considering the Capital Improvement Program. We will hear all persons who wish to be heard thereon. And the Capital Improvement Program is available, linked through the agenda. And is it also available at the libraries?
That's what I understand.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. And at the city clerk's office. The next is an announcement of a public hearing on 24.014, which is a National Grid poll petition for Turkey Hill Road. Per Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, the council will hold a public hearing again on Thursday, March 21st at 7:15 p.m. here. And this is for a petition for 3 new singly owned poles and the installation of underground conduit for service to a new resident on Turkey Hill Road. Instructions for accessing the hearing remotely may be found on the March 21st City Council agenda. That's the same for the Capital Improvement Program, which will be posted no later than 48 hours prior to the meeting on northamptonma.gov. And third is the announcement of a public hearing to consider fiscal year 2025 water and sewer rates. We will hold a public hearing again on Thursday, March 21st at 7:30 p.m. here in Council Chambers. The same access as I mentioned. We will consider the proposed fiscal year 2025 water and sewer rates and hear all persons who wish to be heard thereon. Next, we come to public comment. If you wish to make a public comment, you can sign up at the sheet at the podium. If you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature. And the raise hand feature is in the bottom menu bar by reactions. And if you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. If you're having trouble raising your virtual hand, you can turn on your video and physically raise your hand. If you want to submit a written public comment, please email it to citycouncil@northamptonma.gov. It will be sent to all councilors and will be part of the public record. I'm going to alternate between people in the room and people on Zoom. Before you begin, please state your name and your city or town for the public record. To ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity to speak, the council limits comments to a maximum of 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, I will ask you to please finish your sentence. And if someone has already said something that you agree with, feel free to just second their thought. According to council rules, we do not respond during public comment, as it is your time to speak. So while your comments should be directed to us, we won't respond. Our rules also state that counselors and members of the public shall conduct themselves with civility and respect at all times. So your protected speech is a constitutional right, and one that we ask you to wield with consideration and respect for all, and with recognition that the public space that grants you that freedom is shared equally by everyone. You may speak on any topic. It doesn't need to be an item on the agenda. If you're on Zoom, I ask that all but the council turn off your video until you're called upon. Only the person recognized has the floor, and a reminder, all comments are to be directed to the council. Finally, the meeting can also be watched on Comcast Channel 15 or by streaming on Northampton Open Media's YouTube channel. And we thank them for helping us with broadcasting this meeting. The first person for public comment, and did you start the 90 minutes? Okay. First person for public comment is Peter Kakos. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. Peter Kakos, Florence, Ward 4. Here tonight to, first of all, thank the council for the enormous amount of effort and time that went in to creating a wonderful resolution for a ceasefire and hostages and humanitarian aid so utterly, desperately needed at this moment. This past Saturday, I was in Springfield with others from town who were at the rally where there were over 300 people who stood in the rain to hear speakers. One of them lifted up Northampton and our resolution, and was just excited to hear them speak about us without even knowing that we were there. And I want you to know that we are, if you consider Western New England, everything west of the Connecticut River, we're only the second city to pass the resolution. The first was Bridgeport, Connecticut. I want you to let you know that I'm representing also the Leahy Fast for Palestine Committee, and we want you to know that we're not letting up even though the resolution has been passed. You will find us at any given day out in the courthouse corner, leafleting, telling people about the terrible situation that is taking place as we sit here in our comfortable chairs in our warm homes. And I just want to assure everybody that our committee, our Leahy Fast Committee, will symbolically continue to stay in the streets alongside the 17,000 unaccompanied children in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Zoom, Raymond Pette.
Sorry about that. That was probably loud.
No worries. Welcome, Raymond.
All right.
Your name and city or town, please.
Raymond Pette. I live in Northampton. I am also speaking in complete support of any and all petitions calling for a ceasefire in Palestine and thanking the City Council for the work that they did. This is not a conflict between equals. This did not start with the Hamas attack on October 7th. Since October 7th, Israel's killed almost 30,000 people. Israel's been killing Palestinians for years and calling it defense. The United States, my country, has been sending enormous amounts of money to help Israel kill Palestinians. I don't have an answer here. I don't know what to say. I understand that anti-Semitism exists. I understand that many Jews feel a need for a homeland. I don't have a great answer for this. I've been called anti-Semitic. I've been told I have nothing to say about the matter because I'm not Jewish or Israeli. I've been told I can't understand history, can't possibly care about Jewish people. These are efforts to shut down discussion. These are efforts to stop you and me from speaking up. Please don't stop speaking up. We need to stop killing Palestinians. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Next is Nick Mattern.
Good evening. My name is Nick Mautern. I live at 16 Strong Avenue in Northampton. And I come to, in person, thank members of the City Council for voting to approve the ceasefire resolution. This is something that has meant a lot to me personally, based on some of my own experience with war. And also, it has made me feel very much that I want to continue to be part of this community because of what I heard from my fellow community members and the way the City Council responded so positively to the concerns that were brought forward. I think it's a remarkable thing that we have access and open ears from politicians on our local level here, because we're not finding that from our politicians in Washington, D.C., who in my opinion, are very much under the thrall and control of multimillionaires and billionaires rather than how the average people might feel, and certainly how people might feel who had actually been to places that are like Gaza. I want to let people know that on Sunday at L3 Harris Technologies at 50 Prince Street in Northampton, there will be a Buddhist contingent arriving to pray for peace. That'll be at 2 p.m. on Sunday afternoon at 50 Prince Street. L3 Harris and other military contractors are violating the intent and spirit of the Leahy Law and a number of other laws. And so what's going on right now in terms of weapon shipments to the Israel Defense Forces is against U.S. law. And unfortunately, members of our Congress and the administration choose not to enforce that law. So we have a lawless situation, and that's one reason it feels so insane. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on Zoom, we have Nan S. Nan, your name and city or town, please.
Nancy Smith, Chapel Street. I'd like to request an extra 15 seconds for a disclaimer, respectfully.
We don't give extra time
Okay, thank you.
for that
Nancy
purpose.
Smith, I'm sorry?
For that purpose, that certain with accessibility issues.
Sorry, I'll go now. Nancy Smith, Chapel Street. Regarding last week's articles discussion, thank you to the Council of Rothenburg for a thorough research of the position and our desperate need for stronger financial oversight. The way Councilor Elkins, Volkins, and Perry disrespected, belittled, or simply doing the job speaks volumes about what's going on with the city. And what if that process they can refer to is when they followed with setting up the entire metrics law of affordable homes for future gentrification, stating they would never vote for that when they vote so quietly giving the planning board the authority to do just that. Those who spoke against the highway, we're not trying to slander anyone. The candidate on the highway requirements would have the confidence and spirit to speak up if something seemed off. The candidate on the lower end found less likely to do so. It was never personally just be found more than our current structure permits. Thank you to Councilors Rothenberg, Mayori, and Dubs for standing up to the backlash and voting for the greater financial scrutiny we need. Much respect for your leadership. As Council Mayor stated, what worked 17 years ago does not work for us today. Our city has changed. Part of that change was the vast, profitable development of the old state hospital, Village Hill. People got rich acquired a great deal of power and influence over the city. Another key change, the latest city charter review, which gave the mayor pretty much unquestioned power over everyone and everything in the city government. Even if the city council voted against to hire a mayor who pretty much override anyone or anything. This is far too much responsibility and power by any single human being, which could easily lead to unintended mismanagement and corruption for any mayor, as things are bound to be missed. What we really need is to move to a city manager model where power is distributed to elected council members who hire a city manager responsible for the financial management of the city. No more mayor, but distributed power and responsibility, democracy, yay. But to do this, we must be willing to hire a highly educated, experienced city manager like P-Town did, hiring former Holyoke Mayor Alex Morris. Their long list of unfinished business began disappearing faster than they ever imagined. Alex Morris, look at his education experience to see why. If we want to switch to a charter which focuses more on managing the city, we need to be willing to make that hire of a highly educated, experienced city manager, pay them, and retain them. My disclaimer was spirited debate on issues and qualifications is fine. Rock throwing is no. I'm going to throw a rock to hold up a mirror. See the negative light it casts on me as the thrower, increase the peace.
That's time, Nan. If you could please finish your sentence.
Done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mayor Berger.
I'm going to talk a little slower. Hi, Mayor Berger. I live on 20 Cedar Street, Northampton. And I'm just here to thank everyone for passing the resolution and for supporting such an important cause. My speech today is directed towards the Jewish Federation of Western Mass and anyone that is still wanting to, anyone that's saying that it's anti-Semitic to call for a ceasefire, anyone that's wanting to amend the resolution that was passed. I would just like to say that I'm Jewish, I'm a Jewish resident, and I'm here because I'm Jewish. I know what genocide looks like, and genocide happens because everyday people allow it for it to happen. Everyday people are silent, and everyday people justify it. And there's no justification for killing 30,000 people. There's no justification for starving 30,000 people. And the genocide of Palestinians actually makes everyone less safe. So I keep hearing about this notion of Jewish safety and how the resolution is making some Jews in the area feel less safe. And to that, I want to say, who is actually unsafe right now? It's the people in Gaza are starving to death. 20 children starved to death this week. And I think that if you are against a ceasefire, then you are not seeing the pictures that I'm seeing. And the pictures that I'm seeing are horrifying, of kids where their legs are totally shrunken because they're not eating. I saw a picture today of a woman who waited 10 years to have children because she had so many complications. She waited 10 years. She finally had twins, and then the Israeli army bombed her house, and the twins are dead. And so I think that if you are still opposed to a ceasefire, I implore you to look deeper into the news. Don't just read the Israeli propaganda. Please look at photos from Palestine, what's actually happening on the ground, because they are horrifying. And if you are Jewish and you see it, then you will know that you want it to stop, because this happened to our people. We don't want it to happen to anyone else.
Time.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Steve Connor.
Good evening, folks. Hi, I'm Steve Connor. I'm the Director of Central Hampshire Veterans Services. I am no longer a resident of Northampton. I recently moved to the Berkshires, but I grew up in Florence and a longtime resident. I'm coming on basically to talk about something much more local, and that is your order tonight with the Memorial Hall. Recently, I came into my office, and when I came in, I went to say hi to my staff, and I turned myself around and said hi to my staff, Jessica, and I looked, and something was very strange against her side of the office, and I'm like, what's going on? And she goes, well, look up there. And I look up, and a whole section of the ceiling had fallen, and fortunately missed her, but came awfully close to falling on her, and that was a big concern for me. So I went to the mayor's office and to Central Services and asked what was going on and how could we address it. And your vote tonight is about that very thing. Memorial Hall was built by the Grand Army of the Republic in honor of all those who sacrificed their lives and their livelihood for the Civil War. It was built in the 1880s, so it's been around a long time. It was a library and a museum. It was also the home for most of its existence, the American Legion, into the 1970s. It is a place that is very special to the veterans in the community of Northampton. Basically because it was built for them and it recognizes their existence. I got back from the Navy in the late 1970s, and my father had said, make sure you go down to see the vet's agent, which I know that person, and turn in your DD 214. And I went immediately to Memorial Hall and said, you know, I
Steve,
thought I
if
was
you could,
supposed to go
that's
in.
your time, if you could just finish your sentence.
Okay, but it was actually in municipal building, not Memorial Hall, and that had a feeling to it, and I know it means a lot to all the veterans in the city that Memorial Hall is still the place that's operating and where veteran services exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next, in person, Darthia Melnikov.
Hi. I'm here also tonight.
If you could.
What do I
state
do,
your
say my
and your
name?
City or town.
Okay, sure. Turn it off. Okay, there we
Is
go.
it green?
Yeah, now it's
Okay.
green. Okay. Yeah, hi, my name is Darthia Melnikov. I'm a resident in Greenfield, just up the road. I came to thank you also for your well-considered decision on the 27th to pass the ceasefire resolution as written, and for leading the way for other towns such as Greenfield, which is also going to be looking at that this in the next coming weeks. I wear this keffiyeh tonight not only to remind me of the horror people in Gaza are suffering, but also to remind me that we're all human, we're all connected by our humanity, and that, you know, I just happen to be born here in this country. So it's so urgent, you as our closest layer of government, to hear the public outrage and unrest over this massive assault on Palestinians, especially in Gaza, and send a clear message to our state and federal leaders that we say permanent ceasefire now. I encourage you to preserve the ceasefire resolution as you have it written. The shipping of weapons and funds to a state that is committing mass murder of civilians, the majority children, as we've heard spoken already tonight. And also, this is founded by the International Court, that this is genocide, that it goes against the Leahy Law as well as the Geneva Convention and other international laws, so that we should not be sending weapons, we should not be sending funds to fuel further this mass destruction of a people. As a Jewish public, I cannot stand silent. What is happening in Gaza goes against all that is cherished by Jewish culture. I say clearly, we cannot make a dream of some Jews a nightmare to the Palestinians. The last part I have is that they're truly understood as our cousins. So I had other things, but thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Ellen James. Ellen, are you able to unmute? Yeah, there we go.
I'm muted, and I will start the video. Hi.
Yes, and if you could say your name and city or town.
My name is Ellen James, and I live in Northampton, Ward 4. And I spoke last week in favor of a resolution and was very, very glad to see one pass for a permanent ceasefire and matters of aid, and for other matters that I understand you did a lot of discussion with many groups in the community, and I think the resolution reflected that in a very good way. If there were some things in it that I didn't agree with completely, it seemed to me to be very inclusive and sensitive to the community. I was surprised to hear people criticize it as hate speech or anti-Semitic. And that it's a particularly concern to me now that the definition of anti-Semitism, which is being promoted in a wide area, a wide-scale way in many different places, as the approved definition, is one that would try to equate anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, and that would be a very dangerous thing for us to do now. So I want to encourage you again to be alert to the fact that there are people around who want to make that kind of addition to what Northampton, to the resolutions, not just in Northampton, but all throughout the country now. So
that was time, if you could finish your sentence.
Yes, just be alert to that. That is a confusing and hurtful definition. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ellen. Next in person is Priscilla Lynch. Not sure I have that right.
Good evening. My name is Priscilla Lynch. I live in Conway. I'm a retired social worker, and prior to my more recent retirement, I practiced in this city and all of the surrounding communities. And I'm here to say that I really do appreciate and thank you for listening to the public over the past few weeks and taking action and bringing forward the resolution in terms of Gaza. I think it was very important for you to listen to the people and very important for you to take this action yourselves for this community. We're hearing now about the aid drops by the U.S., airdrops. We're going to hear tonight, I guess, about a pier that the U.S. is planning to build to deliver supplies to Gaza. It's quite disturbing. We're going to give money and send weapons to Israel to bomb people, and then we're going to drop the least effective form of sustenance for them, which is the airdrops. It's the least effective form of assistance, and build a pier to help with assistance. It doesn't get any sicker than that, really. So I thank you for being as strong as you were. I thank you for taking the stand that you took. Change comes from the bottom. We are all here for that change, and we are very thankful for you for participating in that change, and we hope you will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Jonah.
Hi there. My name is Jonah Ferman, and I live in Northampton. And I would just like to commend the council for standing up for what is right by passing a well-worded and all-inclusive ceasefire resolution. I really think that everything is fairly addressed, and I think that the issue at hand, which is the U.S. Sending, weapons and aid, and ultimately being complicit and outright supporting genocide, is the focus of the ceasefire resolution. And I think it is important for all of towns all across the United States to enact these resolutions. And I would just like to remind anybody that may be hesitant or may oppose the resolution that in 1948 the the Genocide Convention defined, put forth an official definition of genocide, which as follows are any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mentally harm, to deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of the life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or part, imposing measures to intend to prevent births, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. And these crimes are these are the crimes that can be punished under the convention, which are genocide, conspiracy to commit genocide, direct and public incitement to commit genocide, attempt to commit genocide, and complicity in genocide. And that is exactly what the United States is doing. And I would once again like to commend the Northampton City Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next in person is Matthew Spurlock.
Hi there, Matt Spurlock at South Street in Northampton. I want to thank each and every one of the counselors that have worked on these resolutions. I know it was a lot of work on top of what you already do. Jeremy, thank you so much for bringing the first one forward. Alex, Rachel, Debbie, and Stan, thanks so much for working on yours. And I was so happy to see that these could be put together in one unified resolution that I'm quite sure the majority of the city, the overwhelming majority of the city, stands behind and is proud. I was proud to be living in Northampton on the night that this passed, and I know that Amherst followed in our footsteps, and I believe that other towns and cities from across the country will follow in our footsteps in the coming weeks and months. Unfortunately, these are tragic times. There's 40,000 counting dead. That's John Hopkins described that there's at least 20% or more over what the official numbers are buried in the rubble. As Israel has deliberately destroyed all life-sustaining structures in Gaza, universities, parks, hospitals, schools, it becomes impossible to count. It's the destruction of a society. It is an unprecedented human-made famine. And it's so important for us to stand against it and do what we can with what power we have and at this time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Next on Zoom is Molly Parr. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you. My name is Molly Parr. I live on Warren Street in Florence. I am in Ward 7 and vote. On the 27th, I came here to explain how divisive the ceasefire was for the Jewish community. I also talked about how it would make us less safe. Here are the anti-Semitic acts that have happened in between when the ceasefire was passed, resolution was passed, and this evening. Swastika graffiti on Elm Street, mezuzahs ripped off doorposts at Smith College, pro-Israel signs that were vandalized. This afternoon, I spoke with a leader of Lander Greenspoon Academy, the Jewish day school in town that educates both Zionists and anti-Zionists, and we discussed a new security grant that they were issued and how they could breathe a sigh of relief to make sure that the students would always be safe. We are less safe now than we were before. It is clear that some council members were apprehensive to move forward, speaking of the power of words and what they mean and what they can do. I have to ask, were the bragging rights worth making your constituents less safe? In fact, Rachel Maori, my representative, admitted she had over 300 unread emails. I still haven't heard a reply. Now, we're not anti-ceasefire. The resolution lacked critical elements for any serious call for a ceasefire and needed to provide clarity that Hamas, a designated terrorist organization, violated a ceasefire on October 7th, committing horrible acts of terrorism, and continues to commit war crimes by using Palestinian civilians as human shields. It needed to affirm Israel's right to defend itself and to exist. The International Court of Justice, which has been referenced here several times, did that. They acknowledged Israel's right to defend itself and to exist.
That was time, if you could finish your sentence.
Even as it pressed Israel for greater humanitarian efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in person is Jared Sarney.
Hi. I'm going to speak extemporaneously, so sorry if I'm a bit stuttery. I'm Jared. I don't live in Northampton, but I work here. All my friends live here. My partner is a teacher here, so, you know, consider myself a stakeholder in this community. Anyways, I just really want to sincerely, as a Jewish member of the community, thank you guys for passing the ceasefire resolution. Obviously, the history of the Jewish people is filled with the horrors of genocide and pogroms and expulsion, everything that we're currently seeing be inflicted upon the Palestinians. So it legitimately makes me feel safer working here and being here, knowing that this council and this town stands firmly against that exact type of hateful violence and genocide. I do want to say that as much as I appreciate the ceasefire and all the work that went into it, like I truly do, I'm sure that was a really stressful and awful process to put together, so thank you guys. It is ultimately just a first step, I think, and it's a symbolic gesture. And we have L3 Harris right here, and they're not making symbolic gestures, they're not making figurative bombs, they're making literal weapons that are killing literal children in numbers that I really can't even comprehend on a human level. So I'd basically just like to ask for this to be a starting point of hopefully some more substantive action and not just the end of it. I also just really want to quickly address what was just said. I'm so sick of the equivocation of anti-Semitism with, you know, being pro-ceasefire. Like, we're literally just advocating for the ending of the mass killing of children and innocents in the thousands upon thousands. If you stand against that in any way, even in some kind of workaround, pedantic manner that we just saw, like, that's deeply and horribly shameful. And I want to be mindful of the call for civility at the beginning, but there's nothing civil about, you know, reducing children and mothers.
That's time if you could just finish your sentence.
Yeah, to such a vicious and reductive euphemism as human shields. There's no such thing as a human shield. There's only humans, and I just want to thank you guys for supporting the sanctity of humans' lives.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Camden.
Hello, my name is Camden Seagull. I live in Northampton. And I wanted to speak tonight to say thank you to City Council for passing the ceasefire resolution. When higher levels of government have so far avoided addressing or outright supported this genocide being committed by Israel, it's important to have any level of government that will do that, and it feels it's very affirming and very encouraging to have our representatives on this local level support a ceasefire here. I know that I, as a Jew, feel safer in Northampton with the ceasefire amendment and with a community that supports peace and lets that be known publicly. I know that what makes me feel unsafe as a Jew is when a country conflates itself with Judaism as a whole and then commits atrocities in that name, and that makes all Jews less safe. I encourage City Council to stand strong on the resolution and not change it or amend it in any way. And once again, I just would like to thank you for passing it and being progressive in that.
Thank you, Camden. Next in person is Mike Kirby, and Mike has arranged ahead of time an accommodation and will be given 4 minutes. If you could, yeah.
My name's Mike Kirby. I live at 20 Hampton Ave in Northampton. And what I wanted to speak to you about is the Old Baptist Church. Oddly enough, when Steve came on, the former director of the Veterans Program, talking about the ceiling falling in Memorial Hall, it triggered in me a realization, and ought to be a realization for everybody, that the city predominantly lives in older buildings, buildings with lots of problems. And I think that not lots of problems, but they have potential. They're older. And we have decided to acquire, and this acquisition decision was made, I think, about 1.5 years ago, in January, in 2022, I think. But essentially, we made the decision to buy it from Eric Sewer. Then, about 4 weeks later, they decided to, it became official that it is now our building. And it's a building that can't be heated because it hasn't got Eric Sewer only went halfway in terms of dealing with the problem of the heating. He put in the boiler, but he didn't hook it up to the street. There's no gas meter. In fact, we are dealing with an appraisal done by somebody up in Longmeadow that doesn't hit that problem at all. The first thing that many appraisers do is walk around the building. That's all you need to do. All you need to do is walk around the building, and you'll see there's no gas meter. Well, we've got a moratorium now on connections. There are no connections allowed. And this is going to be a big operation because when the city looked at the building, they kind of fell in love with it. Too much time went by. If you're going to do due diligence, and I did due diligence on my old house on Summer Street, you do due diligence fast. The minute you get that key, you go in and you look carefully at everything that's wrong and also what's right. But in terms of fact, that so much time has gone by, it's been more than 1 year, and we're just starting to look at what we're going to do with it. And it's just going to be a drag. It's going to be like a Memorial Hall maybe, but much, much worse because of the fact that so much was done, half done, not finished. So okay, well, good. Thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Next is, on Zoom, Alisa Klein.
Good evening, City Councilors. My name is Alisa Klein. I live in Ward 7 in Leeds. I'm here to commend and thank this body for passing a ceasefire resolution at your last meeting. Thank you so much. It was a crucial and righteous action on your parts to participate in an effort across the United States to have municipalities say we must end the genocide of Palestinians that is being unleashed by Israel with U.S. taxpayer dollars. I also want to locate myself in this community conversation. I'm a proud Jew and Israeli American. I grew up in Israel and served 2 mandatory years in the Israeli army when I was 18 years old. And I'm sharing this because you may hear from a number of Jews tonight and beyond, and maybe some Israelis, who will self-identify as such because they think that in doing so, they should be granted extra influence in opposing the resolution. They may even claim that because of the resolution, they don't feel safe in our community. We have heard that this evening. But I too am Jewish. I'm also an Israeli with beloved family members living in Israel. And I believe that calling for an end to the genocide of Palestinians is not anti-Semitic. It does not cause anti-Semitism. And it does not make Jews more vulnerable to anti-Semitism. You may hear from some Jews who lost ancestors in the Holocaust as if that grants them special moral authority to protest the notion of ceasefire in Gaza. I too lost almost every member of my paternal ancestry in the genocide that was the Holocaust. It's precisely because of this loss of so many family members in the Holocaust, and precisely because of what I know and what I've seen as an Israeli, and that I witnessed in my years in the Israeli army, that compels me to say we need a ceasefire now in Gaza, and thank you for passing that resolution. That is the only moral stance that we can take against the genocide that's being perpetrated by Israel and our US tax dollars. In fact, calling for a ceasefire is our slim chance at the Jewish tradition of tikkun olam, repair of harms. So thank you, Northampton City Councilors, for your passage of the resolution last week. You did the right thing.
Thank you. Next in person is Annie Wood. Hi friends, my name is Annie. I'm a resident of Ward 4. I'm also a very proud member of the Democratic Socialists of America. I am here to thank City Council for supporting a ceasefire in Gaza. I watched the City Council meeting with like a half dozen friends who were ecstatic at what happened, not just because they support a ceasefire, but because they had the sort of vanishingly rare feeling under our system of government of seeing their worldview and their beliefs reflected in a decision of the state. Palestinians don't get that. They live under a system of apartheid rule where atrocities are committed against them constantly by a government that they have no democratic will over, even less than the vanishingly little that we have in the United States. And I'm very hopeful, as some folks have already said tonight, that Northampton's solidarity with Palestine doesn't just end with this symbolic gesture. Even if we win a ceasefire, those atrocities will still continue against Palestinians. They will still live under an apartheid system, and that system will still be bankrolled by the United States government. So I'm very hopeful that Northampton continues to be a community that stands on the side of justice and stands on the side of supporting the rights of the Palestinian people. And I know that so many of the people in our community that have spoken up about this are going to continue to speak up about this and continue to fight for a city that stands with Palestine. Thank you. And sorry, could you bring me the sign-up sheet there? Because I've got this one, but I know there's more people. Thank you so much. So next on Zoom is Mr. Andrews.
Hi, my name is Christine Andrews. I live in Florence, Massachusetts. I've spoken 2 other times in front of the City Council in support of the ceasefire resolution, and today I want to sincerely thank the City Council, especially the sponsors of both of the resolutions. I really appreciate the way that you spoke with so many different groups and individuals in the community who are stakeholders to craft a resolution that was thoughtful and that still had the core values that were important to you as sponsors. And thank you for everyone who voted on it as well. I also appreciate the way that you separated the issues of local support for a resolution against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and anti-Arab sentiment, as we've seen those incidents across the board in these communities have been on the rise, and particularly quite close to home in Burlington, Vermont, the harrowing shooting of 3 young men who were wearing kufias. I also appreciate the support for the larger international issue of the ceasefire. What we hear happening on the news has been terrible, but I'm also hearing from individuals who I know personally, my daughter-in-law's family and community. They are real people who are experiencing starvation, medically unassisted births, displacement, and loss of life, who have been killed. It has been demoralizing to have to fight to convince people that Palestinians deserve basic human rights and deserve to live, and that what Palestinians are saying is happening to them is in fact happening. It really is happening. This week, my daughter-in-law and I were actually able to meet with one of our federally elected officials, from whom we've had no response for months. And I think that the resolution that Northampton made last week actually does make a difference, and reaches the ears of our federally elected officials, and helps them to hear from their constituents for what they want. So I think that you are making a difference. Thank you for inspiring other towns to take this action too, and thank you for taking the time to do it right. I really appreciate the work that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in person, Veronica Douglas.
Hi, my name is Veronica Douglas. I live in Northampton, Ward 3. I work in Northampton. I wanted to start by saying I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to your constituents and create a really welcoming atmosphere to hear from them. I was at the Amherst Town Council meeting on Monday, and it definitely did not have the same welcoming atmosphere, and I really appreciate you guys having that opportunity to hear from us on a wide range of issues, and just really make our voices heard. That's really what local government is about. I'm here tonight to thank you guys for passing the ceasefire resolution on the 27th. I work in education, and I spend my days getting to know young people and their hopes and dreams. And I can't describe how heartbreaking it is to hear about young people in Gaza who are never going to get to see their dreams. There are no more universities for them to attend. Many of them have lost their lives, and I really appreciate you guys taking this opportunity to stand up for, stand in solidarity with children around the world, and not just the children in your community. I think that's really important for modeling compassion to everyone in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Rowan Peele.
Hi, my name is Rowan Peele. I use they, them pronouns. I live in Northampton, Ward 3A, and as a Jewish resident, I want to thank you for passing the ceasefire resolution. I'm happy that you're probably tired of hearing that from us this week, since it's not even on the agenda. And I say I look forward to seeing how you use your compassion and the way that you listen to your constituents going forward on this and other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is in person, Amilia.
Okay, hi. Also, someone left their phone up here. I don't know whose it is. It's not mine. Okay, hi. My name is Amilia Black. I live in Cummington, but I am an educator in Northampton. I came up here to express my gratitude to the council for passing the ceasefire resolution, and also to express my gratitude for the activists who speak up and speak out and have those difficult conversations with their families, with their peers. When I was growing up, Northampton was the only place where I witnessed queer people just existing. There were rainbow flags on businesses, and people had pride for who they were and where they lived. And that was very meaningful to me as a person who grew up in a very conservative town where that was not okay. With this resolution, I truly believe that we are telling other cities and other states and our country and other countries that Northampton is a place where Palestinian people, Muslim people, and Jewish people are valued, and that their lives are valued, and that they're important. And so I just wanted to come here and say thank you, genuinely. That's it.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Amy Major.
Hello, and thank you for taking the time to listen. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher me'od. The whole world is a narrow bridge, and we must cross it without any fear at all. I am part of the Northampton Orthodox Minyan, which has existed for over 30 years in various forms in this community. I do not feel safe as a Jew since, for sure, since October 7th. And with the passing of these resolutions, I feel less safe. I can talk to you about the list that I have acquired. I can share it with the City Council of anti-Semitic acts that have happened to people I know and to us since October 7th, and the increase since the resolution passed. I have significant problems with the resolution because nowhere is Hamas held accountable for it being a terror organization. Nowhere is Hamas held accountable for denying its own people food, for shooting young children, which it has done, who went to access food because they were told the food was for resistance fighters, for taking millions of dollars in aid that was given to the Palestinian people and using it for tunnels and munitions, and there's no accountability for that. And that is really problematic that Hamas is not called out as a terrorist organization, and I disagree with that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. It 100% is. And there are, I didn't interrupt y'all. Please don't interrupt me. There are a lot of different opinions, and one thing I noticed is that people on one side are calling people delusional who have a different opinion. I was at the Amherst meeting. It was terrifying because people did not follow the rules, and when city councilors took a pause to ask for time, people started yelling, shame, 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 saying intimidating and threatening things, and there were several Jews who asked for a police escort out because we didn't feel safe. I don't feel safe here. I don't believe the resolution is going to build safety, and what we need to do is get the hostages back. If Hamas would give the hostages back, there would be a ceasefire. We are in favor of a ceasefire, just differently. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, in person, yes, I would like to ask that for everyone to be respectful of other people's time and not speak during other people's time. David Feliciano.
Hello. My name's David Feliciano, and I'm currently a resident of Westfield, Massachusetts. We all know the statistics, and we all know the resolution is not anti-Semitic, so I'm just going to leave a very simple message. As a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and as a human who was born in Northampton, I'm here, hopefully, to move local government because I'm committed. I'm committed to loving life and all the people who are a part of it. I'm committed to learning how to be in community with my friends who want nothing but to build a better world. I'm committed to raising awareness about ways we can improve conditions for everyone. And as you can see by the amount of support for Palestine, I'm not alone in these commitments. But there are some people here, maybe in person, but probably just hiding behind their screens, who are not committed to these things. And they're the reason I'm here. I'm here to remind Zionists who may or may not be trying to organize against the ceasefire resolution that there are more of us than you. And I'm here to remind Northampton City Council, who did the right thing, that there are more of us than them. Unlike those who advocate to end genocide, Zionists are clearly committed to hating life and the people who are a part of it. Zionists are clearly committed to destroying communities, friendships, memories, bonds, and the lives they inherit. Zionists are clearly committed to covering up war crimes and apologizing for ongoing genocide. We urge the Council to stand firm in the current wording of the ceasefire resolution. You did the right thing. Now please don't capitulate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Marielle.
Hi, my name is Marielle. I'm a Northampton resident. I live in the Village Hill neighborhood in co-housing. I'm Jewish and I'm a member of Congregation B'nai Israel, and I have family living in Israel. My sister lives there, my brother-in-law lives there as well, and was recently injured when he was fighting in the reserves in Gaza. Thankfully, he's okay and alive. I'm strongly in support of ceasefire and very appreciative of the Council's resolution. It's hard to watch taxpayer dollars fund this horrific assault on innocent people in Gaza. I do feel for the hostages and their families, and I think that the best chance for hostages to be returned and for peace and safety for my friends and family in Israel, for security in the region, and for the end of the genocide in Gaza is an immediate and lasting ceasefire. Since October 8th, calling for a ceasefire has been politicized, and many take it to mean a lack of regard for the safety and security of Jews and Israelis, but nothing could be farther from the truth. Everybody living in the region deserves peace and a life of dignity. Ceasefire is the first step toward achieving this goal. A resolution in support of ceasefire is not anti-Semitic. There have been claims that a ceasefire resolution makes Jews in the area less safe, but this is not the case, and the people who claim this do not speak for all Jews in this area. In fact, Jewish values support doing whatever we can to save lives. Jewish values demand that we call for a ceasefire. I'm also a registered nurse. I work inpatient at Cooley Dickinson. I used to work in a big public emergency room in Brooklyn. I'm absolutely committed to saving lives and to promoting population health. And what's happening to the healthcare system in Gaza is an absolute nightmare. I cannot imagine working in those conditions or trying to serve patients without medications, without anesthesia, having to decide who gets resources and who lives and who doesn't and dies. I'm also 31 weeks pregnant, and it's hard to wrap my mind around how horrific it is to be pregnant or a new parent in Gaza right now. The neonatal deaths, the C-sections done without any anesthesia, and the starvation that's affecting parents and children of all ages. For
That
these
was
reasons,
time, if you could finish your sentence.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Next in person is Mona Shoddy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Mona Shaddy, I live in East Hampton, Ward 1. I want to sincerely thank the Council for the passage of the ceasefire resolution. I want to thank you for hearing, listening to, and enshrining the voices of the community. When we passed the resolution, we joined over 115 cities across this country. We joined the actions and cries of millions around the world who have been calling for a permanent ceasefire for months. We joined the nations of South Africa, Namibia, and Nicaragua, who are seeking justice at the highest courts to end these atrocities. Since the last meeting, the bombings, shootings, targeting, and mass starvation of Gazans have continued unmitigated. This resolution is a first step. We must band together as the progressive, diverse, and compassionate community we are in fighting and standing against imperialism, racism, colonialism, and genocide. We know we are on the right side of history when we look to our left and to our right, and that we see that we are surrounded by the world. I beseech the Council to stay this course, because just as what happens in the world touches us, what we do here reverberates out into that world. We need to keep going to a free Palestine. And if I may say something, as a Muslim who was told absolutely that Jews are my family, and I am not encouraged, I am commanded to protect them. This genocide makes our Jewish family less safe. Hamas began in 1987 as a result of the Sabra and the Shatila massacres in Lebanon by the Israeli forces and their proxies, the Phalange. It is estimated that the Qassam fighters, Qassam being the armed wing of Hamas, 70% of whom are orphans. What are the 17,000 children that are unaccompanied when they grow up going to think of Israel and Israelis? Will they think of a just, kind-hearted, warm community? Or will they be so traumatized that they too will pick up arms and we will repeat this story again? And that will mean the safety and the lives of Israelis and Jews all over the world will be jeopardized. We have a chance to begin the work to end this cycle. It begins with this ceasefire, and may we stay the course until a free Palestine. Thank you.
Counselor has requested a recess. Just let's keep it very short, 3 minutes.
Yeah. All right.
Welcome back to the Northampton City Council. We're resuming public comment, and the next person on the list in person is Jennifer Scarlett.
Hi, thank you. Jennifer Scarlett, Ward 4, Northampton. I'm going to bore you all with also thanking you all very much for the ceasefire resolutions, which are so important, and I would argue that they're not just symbolic. You know, this city is part of the civil society fabric of this country, and actions that this city and you all take matter a great deal, you know. In the back and forth conversation between the grassroots and the elites in Washington who are doing so badly. I do want to say I wish that the February 27th meeting had been hybrid, in person and online. I think it was very disempowering for all of us to be only online and then to have our screens shut off so that we couldn't even feel like we were, you know, able to be seen by you all as you deliberated. I want to applaud you, though, for the meeting where we did disrupt your deliberations. And I've seen, you know, countless council meetings where activists did that, and there was very draconian shutdown, cops, all the rest of it. You all were very, you know, mellow, and I thought appropriately so, and it was greatly appreciated. I'm pretty new to Northampton, and I feel extremely proud that you all passed the resolution. I would just say that the grief and the trauma, the rage, the helplessness, the sadness of this experience of seeing this genocide, this Holocaust in Gaza is unbearable. And your actions help a little bit. I would say to the Zionists who have been speaking tonight that I feel safer as a person who chooses to wear keffiyeh in solidarity with the Palestinian people because you passed a resolution. So I just want to thank you, and I want to just acknowledge the fact that the people of Gaza are now eating horses and donkeys and being fed on by cats and dogs. That's where we are in this civilization of ours. So thank you again very much.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Meklaka Sandani.
Good evening, everyone. I would also like to thank the councillors who've been so incredible and so courageous in the way they have put together that incredible resolution that was passed on February 27th. I live in Longmeadow, but that night I really wish that I lived in Northampton. You guys really did all of us so proud. You know, we were in, myself and a few other activists today were at Richie Neal's office. We got a meeting with one of his aides after 5 months of trying, and we told them exactly that the fact that Northampton and Amherst passed those resolutions really allowed us to feel like our voices really mattered, and so thank you again for doing that. I'd also like to thank all the members of the Jewish community who are here tonight and who've been all over the country spearheading this effort to speak out in favor of Palestinian rights. You guys are an inspiration to all of us, and you don't know how much that means to us. You guys embody Tikkun Olam, and other communities, non-Jewish communities, have so much to learn from you, so thank you for everything that you all do. I'd just like to say at this point that, you know, 56 years of military occupation, 16 plus years of blockading Gaza did not justify what Hamas perpetrated on October 7th in terms of killing innocent civilians. And what the 1,200 innocent civilians that were killed is just something that we would all, you know, is a stain on all of our conscience. But what Hamas did that day also did not justify the mass slaughter of 30,000 people. And the scale that we are dealing with here is absolutely unfathomable. Just yesterday, Dr. Ronnie Stryer, who's the director of the National Food Security Council in Israel has also called for a ceasefire, citing extreme hunger. The fact that 20 children have already died of starvation while we watch is just unfathomable. And so I really appreciate the fact that the council is standing strong and will stay with the course when it comes to this resolution.
And that was time, if you could finish your sentence.
Well, that's all I have to say. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you. Next in person, Nural Hassan.
Hi. I wasn't planning on speaking today, so I apologize if it's a little bit jumbled, but I'm Palestinian. My grandfather was 15 years old when the occupation started. He and his family were displaced to Jordan, and they've never been back allowed in Palestine since. I was born in Jerusalem. My father had to miss my birth because he wasn't allowed to re-enter the place that he had been birthed. But then Zionist kids from Iowa get to go where I was birthed and call it a birthright and get a full ride trip and paid trip to that. My grandmother is the first and only Palestinian to take Israel to their own Supreme Court and win. She is the only reason that I'm allowed to re-enter Palestine, but I'm not allowed to re-enter Jerusalem. I'm only able to go to the West Bank. I moved to Northampton when I was 9. As much as Northampton is praised for being a place of inclusivity, I did not experience that as a Palestinian child. I was told by various teachers in school that my country didn't exist. We've had people spray paint our home. More recently, somebody saw my mom wearing her kufiya at the Aldi's parking lot and tried to run her over. I heard somebody say that they have not felt safe since October 7th. I haven't felt safe since I was born. I think that this is a very important first step for Northampton to be taking. I have not seen Palestine recognized in Northampton ever in all my years living here. My family and I have contributed a lot to the community. We've advocated during Black Lives Matter. We've advocated during issues of LGBTQ. We've been there and advocated and attended many of the protests downtown. I think it's about time that we do this. I think it's a little bit late, to be honest with you. I think this should have come many, many years ago. And I just want to thank you all for taking that first step. It is the first time that I've heard Palestinian voices being amplified in here in Northampton. It's the first time that I've seen this in Western Mass, and it makes me feel incredibly proud and supported by our community for something that I have felt very alone in experiencing for most of my life. So I do appreciate you all for passing the resolution. I do appreciate you all for taking the time to hear from me, and I do apologize I wasn't very fully prepared, but thank you very much. It means a lot more than you know, a lot more than you realize. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, if I missed it, what's your city or town?
Sorry, Northampton.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Heather Rosenfeld.
Hi. Sound is
Welcome.
working. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, your name and city or town, please.
Yes. Hi, I'm Heather Rosenfeld. I am in Northampton, Ward 3. I'm another Jewish resident, and I just want to second, third, etc. the folks who have already spoken to say thank you to the city councilors and to everyone else who's been involved in the community for passing the ceasefire resolution. I want to echo folks who have said that calling for a ceasefire is not anti-Semitic. And I look forward to more and continued actions for liberation and justice in Palestine. We've already seen how this resolution has been precedent-setting with regards to Amherst, and we all need to keep working towards more concrete actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Selena Della Croce.
Hi, I'm Selena in Leeds. I came here to say, primarily to say thank you for passing the resolution. I already wrote my current and former city councilors in Northampton, and I came here to thank the entire city council for the same, and also to ask, please don't change or amend the resolution. I think language is important. I'm actually a copy editor, so I spend all day nitpicking over commas and all the things that no one really ever wants to think about in terms of language. So I mean that sincerely. The language is important, but the message behind the resolution is clear, and it's correct in its conviction and defense of human life and dignity. As someone who wrote to my city councilors before the resolution was passed to suggest a couple of changes, I feel strongly that nitpicking over details over which there will never be complete unity in the community will do good to no one. We've heard hours and hours and hours and hours of debates, and the vast majority of people have asked you to support and stand by this resolution. You've also heard from Palestinians and from many, many Jews about the importance of this resolution. I'm Jewish, and to Jews who are equating anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, I would say that yes, anti-Semitism is a real threat. I don't think anyone here is denying that, and in fact, there was a resolution passed the same day to denounce and condemn anti-Semitism. But it's not fueled by this resolution. Anti-Semitism is fueled by using Judaism as a shield to justify genocide, and it makes me sick, yeah, it does. As a Jew, I feel safer with the resolution. As a Jew and a woman, I'm the most worried, frankly, about getting stabbed for wearing a keffiyeh than I am for being assaulted as a Jew, although I suppose either is possible. Just north of us in Vermont, this happened. And I live near the bike path, I walk on the bike path, I wear my keffiyeh on the bike path, and I do wonder about that. That's frankly my greatest concern in terms of various identities that are at stake here. For me personally, and this resolution again does make me feel safer, and I appreciate the city councilors standing by their convictions and on the right side of history and passing it. My family has also been impacted by anti-Semitism. It's the reason my dad's family fled to the US before the Holocaust, and the reason my stepmother's mother fled here. She was the only one in her family to survive the Holocaust. I would also reiterate the request to have fact-checking for this meeting. And I think that would doubtlessly address the allegation of how human shields are used, which are actually a common tactic of the Israel Defense Forces.
So that was time, if you could finish your sentence.
So I'll just say that thank you to the City Council. Please stand by the resolution and don't ignore the language.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Nas Taskin. Your name and city or town, please.
My name is Nas Taskin, resident of Northampton, and I'm an educator in the Northampton School District. Like many others tonight, I want to thank the Council for passing a resolution that calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. And I would also like to say I would further support a motion that would call for the right of the return of Palestinians and their descendants who were expelled in the 1948 Nakba. I also want to address those against the ceasefire or who would tepidly support it but feel that the resolution does not adequately condemn Hamas. My response can be boiled down to one word: consistency. You cannot seriously condemn Hamas for what they did on October 7th and ignore the fact that Israel has killed 30 times as many Palestinians in the months since. You cannot ignore the thousands of Palestinians killed in Operation Cast Lead, the thousands killed in Operation Defensive Shield, the thousands killed in Operation Protective Edge. And what do Israeli military officials call these murderous operations? They call it mowing the grass, and you can Google that. These are not the words of those acting in self-defense or those who have sincere concern for the hostages. This is the language of genocide. And as a member of the old tribe myself, to pretend as if ripping down Israeli propaganda posters is anti-Semitic or would make me feel unsafe when entire families have been wiped from the Gazan registry, wiped, eradicated, killed down to the last person, is the height of absurdity. Delusional is the nicest word I have to say about it. Be serious. Free Palestine. Thank you.
Next is Josh Levy.
Hi. I'm here to express my disappointment in the City Council for passing the ceasefire resolution. And I'm saddened that my neighbors are not sticking up for the many members of the Jewish community who have voiced the concern with the resolution as it is written. I also want to speak to those who claim that those like myself who oppose the language of this resolution somehow condone the killing of innocent women and children, or the starvation and the destruction in Gaza. I know what's happening there and I abhor it. I've been to the occupied territories and I've challenged in person members of the Knesset about the morality of the occupation. I'm currently involved in multiple efforts in communities striving to bring peace to the region. To claim that I or others don't know or don't care about what is happening is either a complete misunderstanding of what we have been saying or it's slander. Opposing this resolution does not mean opposing peace in Israel and Palestine. It means opposing language that equates Israeli hostages with Palestinian prisoners. It means clarifying that Hamas is a terrorist organization that broke an existing ceasefire. It means calling out the use of words that are weighted with historical meaning that has wrought violence on our people and threatens to do so again. Finally, the consistent misuse of the word genocide harms more than it helps. I know it feels good and righteous to use it, but it doesn't mean that it is a correct word to be using to describe the situation in Gaza. I'm well aware of the historical genocidal precedents, but being unwilling to use that word to describe what is happening does not mean condoning what is happening. It simply means that I understand historical and legal precedent and recognize the great harm caused by the misapplication of this term by many of my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Clementine Lazar.
Hi, I'm Clementine. I'm a Northampton resident. I am another person here who wants to express my deep gratitude for your passing the ceasefire resolution last week and my desire for it to remain worded as it is. I am speaking up specifically as a Jewish resident of Northampton and as one of many Jews who know that an immediate ceasefire in Gaza is not only a moral imperative, but also an imperative for Jewish safety, which is achievable only through solidarity. I live in Northampton because it's a city that reflects my values and one where I can feel safe, including as a Jew. I appreciate the City Council for their work in passing the resolution and vehemently reject the idea that doing so is somehow contradictory to my safety or to my values as a Jew. When we conflate a desire for peace with anti-Semitism, we dilute our ability to recognize and talk about anti-Semitism where it actually exists. Thank you so much for choosing to pass the ceasefire resolution, and in doing so, for standing up not only for Palestinian safety, but for my safety and for that of the rest of your constituents here in Northampton. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Hannah. Hannah, if you could say your name and city or town.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I'm a resident of Northampton. I obviously want to start by thanking the council strongly and passionately for passing the original ceasefire resolution. I echo calls to maintain the language as it stands and is written. I am proud of my city as a longtime Northampton resident, as a Smith alum, as a Jewish woman and a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. I wish I could tell you how sick it makes me to use the word genocide. Somebody earlier mentioned that we feel good using the word genocide, that it's self-righteous. I wish I could tell you how horrible it makes me feel to have to use that word as I see it borne out day after day against innocent civilians in Gaza at the hands of the Israeli Defense Forces. I know genocide when I see it because I am a child of it on both sides. My grandparents survived the Holocaust, my great-grandparents the Armenian genocide. I've been subjected to several incidents of anti-Semitism since October 7th, and they have all been at the hands of supporters of Israel who have told me I'm not a real Jew and I should leave this country because of my anti-Zionist and pro-Palestinian beliefs. I feel safe here. I feel safer since the resolution has been passed. I feel safe knowing that my city honors and hears my political beliefs, my Jewish values, and not only mine personally, but what I believe, and a lot of Jews believe to be at the core of Judaism, which is protecting and making sacred life at all costs. I want to tell you that I think it's important to maintain the language as it is because it's a strong stance from a small city out of Massachusetts, which yes is a blue state, but I think it still matters, especially as we watch a blue government pay for a genocide. You know, when we took that 3-minute recess, I opened my Instagram and I saw more emaciated dead children. I do that every morning. I do that every day, and I know a lot of you do too. So I just, again, want to thank you as a Jew, as a resident of Northampton, and just really encourage you to hold fast to your conviction and keep the language. Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 10 minutes left in public comment and 4 people, so we should be able to accommodate everyone. Next is Jeeve. Your name and city or town, please.
Hi, my name is Jeeve Mullins. I live in Florence. I just wanted to thank the council for passing the ceasefire resolution and to thank the many powerful speakers this evening who've spoken eloquently in support of that as well. Thank you for this expression of solidarity and compassion. It makes me proud to live here to see that you passed that, especially with the way that it's worded, and I wanted to urge you to please preserve that wording as it is. This is an important first step, and as many people have said, this is setting an important example for other city governments. So I appreciate you doing that, and please stay the course with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is XYZ. If you could state your name and city or town, please.
Hello, my name is Raphael Kelman, and I live here in Northampton, Ward 4. Sorry about the name. I didn't know how to change it. I just want to also thank the council for passing this resolution in the first place, and all the significant work that went into that. Particularly my understanding is you did hear from many in the community, and including some of the voices we've heard tonight who wanted to make sure this language made them feel safe. And I think you worked hard to come up with a forthright, declaration of the need for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. And that condemned the genocide that's going on, while taking pains to see that the other side had their concerns met. And I don't fully understand why additional concerns are coming up. It's I think this is a time-sensitive issue. I also think we're living in a moment where the meaning even of the term ceasefire is being watered down by people like Joe Biden, who are claiming one day that a ceasefire is right around the corner to help his chances in perhaps a Michigan primary, and is having and Kamala Harris is coming out with a similar call, but what they're describing used to be what they were calling a humanitarian pause. So I think it's really rather than a permanent and lasting ceasefire, which is what the people of Gaza needed 5 months ago. So it's really important that we stay the course, keep this language, do not water it down, don't let the meaning of ceasefire be emptied out from this language. Keep it as it is. I think it was carefully crafted. I want to thank you once again for your time with that, and for this time to share my thoughts with you and the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Stacy Ann. If you could say your name and city or town, please.
Sure, my name is Stacy Muller. I live in Northampton. I'd like to thank the council for passing a ceasefire resolution, and I implore you to keep the resolution intact as it stands. I am a local postpartum doula and a nanny specializing in the care of newborns and infants, and I'm a passionate advocate for new parents and young families. And what we're witnessing in Palestine, the numbers are staggering, and like many others, I feel the deaths of these Palestinian children and families in every one of my cells. Palestinian lineages must be protected. Witnessing the atrocities that the US and Israel have committed against Palestinian families has changed my heart forever and has deepened my commitment to bringing new life into this world safely and peacefully, and seeing the excruciating conditions under which new life is being brought forth in Palestine makes me and so many others lose sleep at night. And every day when I see the babies and expecting parents that I care for, I think of Palestine. Again, I live my life in devotion to babies and new parents, and I thank you for your ceasefire resolution, as it gives me hope for future generations of this world. and I encourage you to keep the resolution intact as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Gwen Nabad.
Yes, hello, thank you. My name is Gwen Nabad, and I'm a resident of Northampton. And I do want to acknowledge thanks for the supporting of the resolution for a ceasefire in Palestine. And then also I'd like to address another issue. And so I'm here to speak to the matter of referrals and reappointments to the Housing Authority Board. I'm here to say that residents across the city would like to be in conversation with the mayor about referrals and appointments to the board of the local housing authority. The city of Northampton should take seriously how board appointments impact tenants' lives. These appointments are the one opportunity Northampton has to connect with people who live in public housing. The mayor and the city councilors should give notice to local tenant organizations and have discussions with residents to encourage and support a healthy democracy. I ask the council not to approve the referrals to the Housing Authority Board tonight without further meaningful discussions, and to be proactive in supporting the voices of the vulnerable in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last person is Meghadeepa.
Hi, this is Meghadeepa. I'm actually calling from Holyoke. I spend about 30 times more of my free time in Northampton than in Holyoke, and I feel like I have to just jump on to say thank you so much to all of the councilors who not only put in the effort to hear us out and pass the resolution, but also I know it's been weeks in the making, and I'm a little surprised that this came up for this meeting and people are pushing back, because there have been multiple drafts over weeks and months to really think over this and hear from everyone. And so it's frustrating to now come and offer things that maybe haven't been said before. I also want to say that I had a really rough week last week, just as someone with a lot of marginalized identities, and was really struggling with just a lot of ableism and xenophobia, and honestly pretty blatant racism at the city council meeting for Amherst and, oh my gosh, like Greenfield. And the fact that people feel able to say certain things out in public without fear of consequences. And it's really, really scary. And I felt like I couldn't make it to the meeting last week for Northampton, but it was hearing the news about the ceasefire resolution passing was one of the best parts of my week, and just helped counter a lot of systemic oppressions I've been facing recently. And it just made me feel so much safer. I also want to back up, I can't remember who this was, but there was someone who brought up fact checking, and I just wanted to say that that sounds like a really great idea to me, because I'm hearing a lot of propaganda just being passed off as fact, and that is really harmful. And kind of on the same note, while folks are talking about being targeted,
That was
for
time,
their
if you could
identity
finish your
since-
sentence.
Yeah, I just want to say that if folks are saying that they're being targeted since October because of anti-Semitism, I just want to push back on that just a little bit and say, are you being called out for saying things that are harmful to other communities or dehumanizing them, or are you being targeted based on your religion? That's, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for speaking. Really appreciate hearing from you. Okay, so we're on to other items. And with the council's permission, I would like to move up 24.021, an order to appropriate $426,218 from stabilization for Memorial Hall emergency repairs, as we have a consultant on retainer here, and what's that? Yeah, I would like to move this one up. Permission. Okay, seeing no objections, we will take up that order.
It's going to be a lot longer than that.
So this is 24.021, and I would like to see if we could, so we have Alan Wolf here from the mayor's office, and the mayor is here as well. And we also have Pat McCarthy from Central Services. And so would someone from the city like to present first on the order?
I think the mayor would like to be making her co-host as we speak. There we go.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present this emergency order to you. And I want to thank Census Director Pat McCarthy, who, as you said, is here, as well as Mark Loringer from Gale Architects Associates. They're both here to answer any specific questions and any technical questions that you may have. The work we are asking for funding for tonight is actually on the capital improvement program that will be discussed at the next meeting. But the escalating urgency of the safety situation at Memorial Hall and the ability to tie some of this needed work to the roof and envelope work that the council approved last June brings us here tonight so that we can begin this work months earlier than it would have to be if it went through the rest of the process. Memorial is a beautiful historic building honoring the residents of Northampton, Florence, and Leeds who have died or are missing in service to our country. And Veteran Services Director Connor already spoke to the history and to the importance of this building for veterans and families. It also houses many city and school departments. So obviously Veteran Services, as you've heard, also HR, the mail services, Arts and Culture, Central Services, Northampton Public Schools Student Services. There are many, many employees and departments that are in Memorial Hall. We didn't read the order, but as usual, we try and pack a lot of information into it. And as it states, and I believe that Mark has a presentation, and that presentation will illustrate, while Central Services has worked to maintain the building, there is now significant structural work outside of what we can handle internally. And there is specialized masonry and foundation work that needs to be done because it is compromising structural components of the building, which in turn is leading to significant safety issues, as you heard from Director Connor, including heavy plaster molding that has fallen from the ceiling in Veteran Services. There's also, we have had to close the entrance leading to Pulaski Park because of risk of falling material from the building facade. So there is sort of an imperative that we get this work started because there are safety concerns about this building. So with that, I am very happy to hand it over to Director McCarthy. Thanks.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Good evening. I want to introduce myself to the new members of the City Council. My name is Pat McCarthy, and I'm the Director of Central Services Department. Very briefly, I started working with the city as a Facilities Project Coordinator in Central Services in 2015. And I've been the director since early 2022. Memorial Hall is a city building a few steps from where you're sitting tonight. It was built in the early 1870s, which makes the building a little bit more than 150 years old. I'm here before you tonight to request city funds to address some of the urgent structural concerns we have regarding Memorial Hall. Since I started working for the city, I have been concerned about the amount of water entering the basement of Memorial Hall after every rainstorm. I've been concerned about the lack of stormwater management on the perimeter of the building, which presently directs water towards the inside of the building rather than away from the building. This has probably been occurring in this building for several decades. During the renovation of Pulaski Park, standing inside the building, one could feel the vibe of Pulaski Park. Water infiltration and the number of frequencies of rainstorms has also increased the amount of water coming into the building's very old building envelope. Over the past 8 years, Central Services has hired structural engineers, and we have added structural beams in the basement below the east and west side entrances where substantial foundation settling was occurring. Because of these ongoing and worsening concerns, in the winter of 2022, Central Services started to meet with local architects to evaluate the problems. Two local architects who Central Services works with on a regular basis referred us to Gale Architects out of Glastonbury, Connecticut, who are leaders in the field of historic restoration of these types of municipal buildings like Memorial Hall. Central Services, met with and hired Gale in the spring of 2023 to conduct an in-depth evaluation of the building's basement and exterior building envelope. In November of 23, Gale presented their evaluation study and cost estimate for the repairs to the city, which have been recently sent to you. Last fall, Central Services took proactive measures and applied for CIP money to hire Gale Architects this spring to begin further evaluation and to design plans and specifications for a solution to fix the building's consistent and worsening water penetration issues. Central Services has also submitted an application this round to the Northampton Community Preservation Committee for community preservation funds to carry out all the repairs called out in Gale's November 2023 evaluation study cost estimate. I don't know if I mentioned it already, but the cost estimate value to complete the entire restoration of the building envelope and the basement is $2.7 million. In February of this year, approximately 4 feet of ornate plaster molding fell 15 feet to the ground next to a staff person desk in the vet's office. Central Services has closed the west entrance to the building out of concerns about exterior loose piece of granite and brick above that entrance. Due to the immediate safety concerns, Mayor Chiara asked our department to determine the cause and make the necessary repairs to prevent an incident like this from ever happening again. Through the month of February, Central Services has been working with Gale Architects, a couple local architects, a structural engineer, and Kiter builders to pinpoint the source and immediate structural problems and how to go about fixing the most important structural issues and determining the immediate cost to do the repairs. I've been very fortunate enough to have the lead architect, Mark Loringer from Gale Architects, here tonight to give you a small presentation regarding these structural issues. I would like to now introduce Mark. One thing I just wanted to show you before I pass it on to Mark. See if I can get this on the camera. This is just 8 inches, trying to get it centered, of the plaster. This is a lost trade. We don't do this anymore. Typically this is wood and it's light, but this is just about 8 inches. And you can see it is about the size of a brick. And it's actually heavier than a brick. Well, I would say about 4 feet of this fell. It's pretty heavy. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Mark Loringer from Gale Architects. And can someone give Mr. Loringer the ability to share a screen?
Yes, that's done.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Are you guys seeing the screen now?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Pat, for inviting me here today. Thanks for the introduction. I think a lot of the information you just presented is here in our presentation, so I think we can get through some of this pretty quick. I am Mark. Senior Associate Partner with Gale Associates. I'm a professional engineer. Been with Gale for 25 years this coming September. We're staffed with professional engineers, architects, planners, in business for 60 years. We are privately owned. We have 7 offices across the East Coast. One here being in Connecticut. Our headquarters is in Massachusetts. Some of our disciplines that really apply to the issues here at Memorial Hall are building enclosure design and consulting, our structural engineering discipline, and a little bit civil engineering when we talk about the flooding in the basement and the control of stormwater coming off the roof and around the building. So if you're not familiar with the science of building enclosure design and consulting, it really is everything that keeps the inside environment in and the outside environment out, associated with your roof, facade, and weatherproofing of that building. We do focus on evaluation design and forensic evaluation, primarily related to moisture infiltration. That really is our specialty. And this is just an image on the right side, an exposed brick masonry parapet wall exposed to water over a long period of time that was actually loose when we got up there and pushed it around. This is not Northampton. This is just an example to kind of set up the damage that water can create on building enclosures and structures. And structural engineering, we often get called in for situations such as Northampton in emergency structural evaluations and augmentation designs. Again, the force of water, the length of water infiltration at this building has actually jacked that upper portion of the building upward due to the steel corrosion. So again, just to highlight the effects of water, long-term water deterioration. I'm a professional engineer, so the first and foremost duty that I have is to protect the public. So I take this very personally and I take it home. This is actually a war memorial in my hometown of Rockville, Connecticut, where we're performing some similar forensics and repair work. So when we get into Northampton itself, project background, Pat did mention that. In 2023, we provided the full building enclosure evaluation, which included some exploratory work at this displaced stone on the west elevation above that west entrance. This is right at the intersection of where you have a number of different rainwater leaders, gutters, and a steep slope roof all coming together at one point, causing distress to the masonry in that location. That uncontrolled water has caused that displacement of stone. And you can see on the photo on the right side some of the white efflorescence in the deteriorated stone under that upper window. And that's really the extent of how this water is cascading over the masonry, causing that deterioration. And the scope, the masonry restoration scope and the gutter scope, leader scope, all the emergency work up at this area is defined in plan view by that little image on the lower left, the green highlighted area. Again, this is the west elevation, a south return, and again over the west elevation. The stone we're looking at, the bad stone, is right in this inside corner. When we get up to the roof level, the image on the upper right is a portion of where we did some exploratory work looking at the condition of that masonry behind the veneer. And just so everybody is aware, brick masonry and mortar is a porous material. Water will get through it and it will need to come back out of the wall. So what we're proposing up at this area where we have the sloped roof on the right coming into the gutter and a surface applied flashing going up the roof. You look at the image on the lower left. What we want to implement is a flashing that tucks into the wall assembly, picks up that water and brings it back out of the building. And at the same time, reconfigure some of those down leaders so as not to overflow the gutter in this area, the drainage system that's in this area. Here on the right, you can see that those two stones on the right side are displaced a good 1.5 inches, and they are a fall hazard. So that is partially why the west entrance has been closed. That long-term water infiltration does result in the deterioration of wood or metal lath that the interior plaster is attached to. This is an image on the inside of that corner at Memorial Hall. This is up on the upper floors. So that long-term deterioration causes detachment of the plaster keys into that metal lath or wood lath, and then the eventual displacement of the plaster itself, like Pat has shown you. These are just a couple images that if you leave the water running without fixing the source of water, that will just continue to occur over and over. This happens to just be a courthouse in Hartford, Connecticut. So we've seen this phenomena before, and it's very important to stop the water. No water, no problem. When we get down into the basement space of Memorial Hall, the image on the right is one of the supporting arches of the structure. You can see that deteriorated condition caused by constant wetness in that basement, whether it's from flooding through the foundation walls or rising damp from the earth below. And if you're not familiar with the phenomena of rising damp, masonry, like I said, is porous, it is absorptive, and it will pull water out of the ground as well as absorb any water that's sitting on the slab in this condition. So those arches, those interior walls are in a deteriorated state and really need to be repaired. Pat did mention that he has seen water infiltrating the foundation on the west side, which we also didn't see any active water, but we've seen evidence of that infiltration. And what I want everybody to understand is that this large masonry building and other large masonry buildings are not static creatures. They are dynamic and they do move. And you can see that movement in some of the cracks between the mortar joints and the stones that make up this rubble foundation of Memorial Hall. So that foundation movement and settlement causes structures above to move, plaster crack, and further dislodge it when you also have moisture problems. Pat also mentioned that there are some previously installed lally columns and supporting beams underneath the wooden floor joists, previously supported on the top of that foundation. And due to that long-term moisture issue, we are seeing moisture, steel deterioration at the base of those lally columns. Again, in need of immediate replacement. So our preferred solution here, down the left side, it's going to start from the top and work our way down. We need to repair the above roof line, the through masonry flashing that I spoke about. We can reconfigure the roof area rain leaders, eliminating those combined leaders and reducing the load in that corner. Partial replacement of worn rain leaders and gutters at that same location. Brick masonry removal, replacement and stabilization, all the deterioration that you saw in that plan view and up the elevation as well. And that includes that stone masonry removal and reinstallation or replacement and stabilization as needed. Then the structural stabilization down in the basement, we noted the arch repair and replacement, brick and mortar repairs associated with it, steel lintel and header beam installation and supports, and then supplemental floor joist support where we get into the lally columns and new footings at those locations. And some of these images on the right, like I said, we've seen this before. Up on the right side is a through wall masonry flashing that we spoke of. The top left photo is new copper cornice flashing and gutter work on a church in West Hartford, so it's similar to what you have in Northampton. Lower left is actually in Chicopee, Massachusetts at the City Hall with a number of stone replacements due to moisture deterioration since 1871 in that case. And then on the lower right, that is a much larger arch repair, but very similar to an arch repair that would be performed at Northampton Memorial Hall. So that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Are we ready now to move to questions from councilors? Councilor Rothenberg.
What are we doing for the safety of the employees who are in the building today and until the repairs are done? What's needed to be done?
Is that a question for me or perhaps Pat?
Yeah, I think, okay. Would you be able to make Pat a co-host?
I believe he is.
Can you unmute now, Pat? Director McCarthy? Yes, please. Go ahead.
Basically, we've had our maintenance crew throughout the first floor get up on a ladder and actually check each square linear foot of the crown molding. And we actually proactively had the crown molding tested, and there is no asbestos, thankfully. We're going to be removing another small 4-foot section over the vet's door. But other than that, the rest of it so far seems intact.
What about the granite that's at risk of falling on the side door? What are we doing for the public there?
We've closed off the entrance. So if it does fall, no one will be there. But what we want to do is take it apart, as Mark explained, and repair it.
Thank you.
Councilor Labarge, make sure to turn your microphone on.
I'd like to know, I was going through the report today about the mold situation. Exactly what is the percentage in the building of mold? Could you answer that, Patrick?
There is mold, but I could not answer to what percentage. I know particular locations I've been shown. Some up on the, Warren Jones has an office up on the 3rd floor, and in the back of his office, which is actually the inside of the corner that Mark showed, that entire wall is wet, even up on the 3rd floor. And you can see mold growing. And I'm sure there's some mold growing in the basement. But as to what percentage, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Councilor Manley.
Yes. Thank you, Director, for being here tonight. I just wanted to know kind of the background of the problem. Is this a long-standing problem that exponentially got worse kind of unpredictably and suddenly, or is this kind of, you saw this coming and it just arrived earlier, that kind of thing?
Well, as far as my history goes with the city, there has always been water in the basement. One of the culprits is there's 3 or 4 honey locust trees that are overhanging the roof, and it's nearly impossible to keep those gutters clean. Because of the trees, you can't get a lift in directly in front where you can clean out the gutters. You have to get a lift with a large boom that will be able to run the length of, park in the rear of the building, and then the length of the boom has got to run the length of the back house in order to clean it. And just because you need a boom, we're spending about $6 grand a year just to try to keep that one length of gutter clean. So historically, I think that's been an ongoing problem because of these trees. I have asked to have them trimmed, but I don't know enough about trees. It seems that more needs to be taken off, but again, I'm not a tree expert. If it were my building, I would take the trees down, but it's not my building. They seem to be doing more damage. I mean, I really like the trees. They're right outside my office, but they are creating havoc on the west side of the building, preventing the water damage, or I'm sorry, the water management system from working. There's other parts of so you have gutters with downspouts, and the downspouts, basically half of them, or more than half, are just running onto the ground. They are not going into a stormwater drain, which directs the water away from the building. There were old drains there, but we've had the DPW there over the past couple of weeks, and they are all 100% clogged. So basically, there needs to be a new, around the perimeter of the base of the building, there needs to be new perimeter underground storm drains that would carry the water away from the building and into a close by catch basin and away from the building. But right now, what's happening is it goes onto the ground, and as you can see that Mark pointed out, a lot of it ends on the exterior envelope wall and has been deteriorating the wall. As well as when it hits the ground, it just goes right back into the building rather than away. So I would say this has been happening for a couple of decades. We've been trying to address it structurally in the areas that we've seen. But for example, I had Mark out last April or March, and I was very concerned about the front steps because there's voids in the front steps directly underneath the statues, and I was very concerned about the foundation being undermined. But after reading Mark's report, that is only one of many things. And I would assume that it's been like that for several decades. You can see that there is evidence that maintenance has been attempted, but this is a specialty field. I know that when we go to repoint the brick, we need to test the brick compression strength in order to use the right strength mortar. A typical maintenance person might just put Portland cement in there, and what happens is it will just pop the face of the brick right off. So it is a specialty trade, and I'm sure that Gail will be able to point us in the right direction. Did I answer your question?
You did. I had a follow-up.
Your mic.
If someone else, I haven't. Well, my follow-up question is, what can we expect if we choose to invest in the building with this order? What can we expect? I mean, are these problems going to be resurfaced? Maybe this is a question for Gail, but what can we expect from this investment?
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so the investment, this initial investment would solve the areas that I showed. But you have to understand that these types of buildings require constant maintenance. And everything that Pat was also talking about, the below grade leader system, the stairs, I mean, that happens with these types of buildings. So the smaller investment at this point would solve those areas that we discussed. I will not use the word permanently, but in a long-term fashion.
And what does long-term mean?
It all depends on the future maintenance and exposure of the building. But it could be a 30-year repair, a 40-year repair, if you want to hear some numbers. But
thank you.
A building is like a car. You must maintain it or it will not last.
Other counselors?
Yeah,
Counselor Pastridge Clemmer.
Hi. I've done some renovations on a very old church. when we opened it up, we found a lot more damage than we initially expected, which happens often. Do you think that might be the case when you start doing these initial repairs?
So that's absolutely true. I would anticipate that when we open up the wall above that displaced stone, there will be additional backup brick that needs to be replaced, repointed. But in a design document, you can accommodate for that with cash allowances, with unit prices, and build it into the contract. So everybody's expecting that these things will be encountered, and there's money set up in the contract to address them. I would say that you have to stop somewhere. You can't keep digging because you're working your way across the entire building and do the $2.7 million project. So yes, I do anticipate that there'll be some backup repair. Right now, there are some unknown geotechnical conditions underneath the basement slab that we need to explore a little bit before we put in any new footings and lally columns. But that would be all part of the design process for this emergency work.
So with the additional repairs, is that part of the quote that you gave us, the 400 and whatever it was, 26,000, or is that?
Well, that's not my quote. That's a compilation of numbers from Pat, and he could probably explain that better.
Yeah, I would say the actual hard cost of the construction, the bricks and mortar, is only about $250. So it's not a great deal. I mean, the cost estimate in the Gale study to do that work around the entire building and the entire basement is 2.7. So we're only spending right now a small fraction of that. The difference between the 240 and the 426 are basically the soft costs. For there's, as Mark had just said, there's geotech investigations, there's compaction testing, there's rough testing of rebar. So it's there's a lot of soft costs up front to make sure that the work is being done correctly.
And the arches.
Also during I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say also during construction, Pat, we had thrown in some allowances for, concrete testing, so the concrete could get tested. Special inspectors for any wells or anything like that. That would be a third party as part of the construction project. So there's not only soft costs during design, but there's other inspection costs during construction that are factored into Pat's budget there.
Okay. And then the arches in the basement, are they just structural, they're holding up the building, or? I haven't been down there, so, I mean, I just saw the pictures. I don't even want to go down there.
So yes.
Stay out. I mean, do they have to be replaced with bricks in the same fashion because it's a historic building, or? And it sounds like it's going to happen again. Could you just put something more sustainable in there?
Absolutely, and that is the goal. There is a schematic out there right now that shows just that. And if you remember the picture that I showed you with the large steel I-beam supported on two steel posts, that is a concept that's out there right now for the repair in Northampton. Yes. So
instead of just putting more bricks in there that we're going to have the problem, we could do something like that.
Yes.
And
I don't think historic would have too much of an issue with an emergency long-term structural repair in a basement.
Yeah. And then what about the walls and all the mold? And I mean, the place I did, we just took out all the walls and the plaster and lath and just drywalled it and put insulation in, because those buildings aren't insulated that great either. I mean, is that part of the big picture, or?
I'll just say that insulating the inside of this building is not part of that 2.7.
Okay. And what about the moldy walls and the walls that are falling apart?
I'll let you speak to that, Mark, but I do believe that, making the building up to snuff as far as moisture control, water management, that will certainly help that problem dissipate over time. I don't know if you have anything to add, Mark.
No, I'm not familiar with the mold study, so it is something that once the water is stopped, that's something that Northampton can treat after that.
So the 2.7 is for just the outside of the building, basically, to seal it up and replace stuff and stabilize it?
That was masonry, facades, and basement structural improvements, yes.
And not the drain around the outside either? Not the drain, any kind of drainage system?
Yes, the drains and waterproofing of the foundation, yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much.
Any other questions? Councilor Rothenberg?
So as you can probably appreciate, Mr. Loringer, we have a whole city to fund, right? And we've got to think about schools, and we're talking about cutting teachers this year. This project came to our attention as a council, this particular request for funding 2 days ago. And it's a big chunk of change in comparison to some of the things we're being asked not to fund. It could be the equivalent of eight staff people at our schools. So what I'm really looking for tonight, the most important question that I have, because any one counselor on this council has the power to delay a vote by 2 weeks. Well, two counselors could do that together. Any one counselor could delay it by just 2 days. I'm trying to understand what the difference is between council making a decision very, very, very quickly with initially very little information today. We just got a 50-page report yesterday, and we just got line items today at 2 o'clock, and we just got some corroborating proposals at like 3 o'clock, right? The meeting started at 7. So I'm trying to understand what would be the difference between a vote today and a vote in 2 weeks, because to me, this kind of a detailed presentation should be the starting point, right? This should be what we get first, and then it's our job to review and consider everything, talk to our constituents. And I have to say, I reached out to some of my constituents, including veterans, and they said, protect the process. The process first, building second. So that's what I'm really looking for, and I'm wondering if you might be the best expert to tell me what's the difference between today and 2 weeks from now on this vote, so we can really make it fully, willingly, intelligently on behalf of the 30,000 people we represent. Thank you.
It's probably a question for myself or the mayor.
The mayor. Go ahead, Pat.
I started this process last spring. It's a long time. This stuff should have been dealt with years ago. Everything in municipal procurement takes time. So if we delay it 2 weeks, we push it 2 weeks, it's not going to be the end of the world. However, it's just another 2 weeks in which the design doesn't start, the testing doesn't start, and it may push the actual construction into late fall rather than. I'm not saying the 2 weeks is going to create that, but it's a domino effect. But this is health and safety, so to me, time is of essence.
Well, and that's why it's a question also for Gail, really. I want to know the practical effects of the 2-week delay. And I just also want to say, Director McCarthy, I am appalled that you have had to wait so long for this. I don't think the solution for that is to spring it on council either. Something else should have been done here, but I'd like to hear from Gail about the 2-week delay.
So first of all, I just want to jump in and say, so first of all, you know, as soon as Pat brought this to my attention, we started working on this project and started lining up experts like Mark to figure out what needed to be done. I also just want to make sure that the council understands that these are not general funds, right? These are one-time stabilization funds. So they couldn't fund teachers, they couldn't fund things in the general fund. Those are recurring funds. This is one-time stabilization funds. That's how capital improvements are funded.
Mark Lawrenger, would you be interested or able to speak to our councilor's question?
Real quick. I can do that. With the protections that Pat has put into place, with the closure of the west entrance, the touching and the removal of some of the plaster elements that we know were loose, and the condition that we've seen in the basement, I don't feel that there is any imminent danger over the next 2 weeks. And I'll leave it at that.
Anything about the potential pushing it into fall and construction schedules, and if you've got to wait to start your work?
That is all true.
Thank you.
Councilor Mayor,
I just had a
your microphone.
Oh, yeah. This is probably for the mayor. What did you say about, how does this relate to the, what's listed in the capital improvement book? Was this listed and this would be just done early, or is this a new item? I'm looking right now.
So the mayor has had to go. I know Charlene could speak to this one, but I'm pretty sure that this was in the capital improvement book, and it had to be. It has become more urgent since a piece of the ceiling
looks like
fell.
it is.
Yes. So this is being pulled out of the CIP.
Right, so if I can just jump in on that. So it's not being pulled entirely out of the CIP. This is a portion that is being pulled out to deal with the urgency of these particular items. And then we will be adjusting, Pat will be getting new estimates for the work that remains. And as you all know, when you vote or appropriate funds and they are not all used, those funds can then be reprogrammed for other one-time uses and for other projects, which we have done in the past. So that is the plan as we move forward, because we haven't figured out when this work is done, how much this, how this will impact the rest of the project. So we will get those figures as we move forward.
Thank you. Councilor Moulton.
So, I guess for Director Nardi, is the mayor left us temporarily or permanently?
No, she had she's away at a conference, and so she had to leave at 9.
So
she stayed
Director Nardi, then, can you speak to the mayor mentioned in introducing this that this would, if the emergency repairs, beside the obvious need for moving ahead quickly because of the safety issues, these would be tied to, I believe, she said, roof and envelope work that has been previously approved by the council. Is that correct?
So yes, they are. I believe Central Services is already working on those two aspects on the Memorial Hall, and so it would be tied to that. And the work that's ongoing, it would just be added on to that, because we have already deployed people working on that. Is that correct, Pat?
The rear section roof, the back of the house, so to speak, was funded by SIP last year, and we've had Sternick Architects working on that. Yes, so, but we are now faced with marrying the two projects together. For example, where the roof meets that west corner, we need to coordinate that between last year's roof project, which hasn't started yet, which probably will go out to bid pretty soon. But we have to coordinate that with Gail's work on the west corner entrance.
And we have requested emergency procurement. Is that correct as well?
For what?
For this project?
drawing a blank.
I believe we have. We requested emergency procurement so that we can move forward quickly.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So Director McCarthy, then, does it make sense, both from a logistic point of view and a financial point of view to marry this work with the previously approved work?
It is going to be, yes. The rear roof is pretty much, it's a discrete project. But where it ties into the present outside work is that west corner in reconfiguring the downspouts. So, yeah, we are marrying it that way, yes.
And this makes sense to you?
Yes.
Okay, good. I move for suspension of rules for 2 readings tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion made by Councilor Moulton and seconded by Councilor Labarge to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight. Discussion on that motion. Councilor Pastridge Clemmer. Yep.
I know this place needs to be sealed up so to prevent further damage inside, but I just want to state that the mold situation and the crumbling walls is a huge concern, and it won't go away just because the building's dry once you have mold in the building. So I just wanted that on record.
Thank you. Councilor Rothenberg.
Yeah, I'm okay with moving forward with this tonight, but similarly, I'm concerned about this building being not financially viable for us to sustain long-term, and I would like to find some mechanism for council to pick up that discussion at a future date, because I just don't know that we have the luxury of owning this beautiful building and maintaining it when we have so many other services that we really have to take care of. But that's not a conversation for tonight. I would ask President Jarrett if we could discuss at another time how we might get that into an agenda somewhere, maybe a subcommittee.
I'd be happy to speak with you about that. Other questions from councilors, or just deliberation on suspension of rules? Councilor Dobbs.
I had a question about
your
sorry. Sorry about that. I had a question about the overall accessibility improvements that there might be since we're investing this much money into repairs. I was just curious about, like, for example, the current safety, if there are any current safety issues with the elevator in the building. I was wondering, like, if there are any, like, service interruptions at the elevator, and if that will be improved at all. Also, I was curious about, you were talking about doing repairs to the stairs in the front, and while we're spending that much money on repairing stairs, I would feel like I would at least, I feel obliged to at least mention that it would be nice to consider or at least discuss the possibility of building a ramp in the front, on the front stairs, especially since there are veteran services in the building and many veterans are disabled. I feel like improving the accessibility of the building would be a benefit, especially when we're investing this much money. Thank you.
In response, presently, the elevator is working. It has passed the inspection, the state inspection, and it is certified. Someone can come in unobstructed, well, presently not the west side, but the east side, get the elevator and be able to hit offices on the ground floor, which is vets, retirement and human resources, and then get in the elevator and go upstairs and be able to be at Central Services, the Arts Council, and SPED. And that, other than the basement and the third floor, which is not even accessible to the public at all, the building is presently, everything could be better, but yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on suspension of rules?
One more comment. This is supposedly a part-time job for us. That's how they figured the compensation rate. It was about 20 hours. The amount of work that was required in the past 2 days just to get a little bit of information eked out and drop everything and find it, and it wasn't brought to us and presented to us in a clear manner. I just want to say, the next time that happens, I may just default to a charter objection. I may not do the legwork to go to you and find the information. So that's a note to the mayor's office. This process has got to be improved. Get it on our radar sooner, or if it's really last minute, silver platter with all the information we need. We cannot drop everything in our lives and go hunting it down.
And I just want to make a comment that I understand your position, but this is an emergency. And
respectfully, Director, it's an emergency, but what we got was one letter with a narrative and a figure. What you sent us later in the day was fantastic. Lots more information. We need that from Go. That's what I'm saying.
In general, Counselor, the history has been that that information is transferred during the public meeting to all 9 counselors at once.
This is a notice to you that I will be exercising a charter objection the next time this happens. Did you call on him? I don't think you did. It's a notice to you, Alan. Take it for what it's worth.
Chief of Staff Wolf, do you wish to speak further?
I would like to note that in my entire municipal career, in 2 municipalities now, the process is to put forward an order and come to council with the appropriate experts ready to speak, with presentations. We have never before today sent the detailed plans as if the council is going to determine what type of brick we're going to use or not. We send the information. We try to be as helpful as we possibly can to do the work of the people of Northampton, but the city has hired experts like Pat McCarthy to do this work. And in prior councils, this has been trusted. And I just want to say, we come to council prepared to give the information you ask for. And I believe every question has been asked tonight. This is highly irregular. To say that we're not providing information as if it's somehow not straightforward is not an accurate statement. We're trying to get the work of the people of Northampton done. This building next door to us could fall down. You saw the pictures, and that was presented tonight. That is all I have to say on that.
Any other deliberation? Councilor Moore?
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate Director McCarthy's arrangement to have Mark from Gale here tonight with a detailed presentation that was extremely valuable for us to understand the nature of the problem and the solutions that's being that we're voting money for tonight. So thank you, Director McCarthy, and thank you, Mark.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes, thank you. Mark, I want to thank him for the presentation. I also, Patrick, want to thank you. I have to agree that when it's an emergency, I don't care what building is, that's a priority, a definite priority here. And Councilor, I agree about the time involved in getting the information. Sometimes that's not going to happen here, and it's not because of the emergency situation. The building needs to have something done as quickly as possible. We got rain coming again. And I'm concerned. You heard me bring out about the mold, how much percentage of mold is in there right off the bat. So I want to thank you, Patrick. I want to thank Michael also for the presentation, and I want to thank Alan Wolf also for speaking out.
Thank you. Seeing no other...
No, there's a final comment.
Councilor Rothenberg.
To illustrate better what I'm talking about and why I brought this up, one of the things that I asked for today was the line item breakdown of this figure, this $400 and some thousand. When I was told that that was being prepared, that's concerning to me as a counselor, because anybody who's asking for $400,000 should have a list of exactly where that's coming from. For whatever reason, that took 24 hours to be put together. Fortunately, it was put together. I asked for more corroborating information, and it was there. But it should be a red flag to all of us counselors. It should be good practice that if you asked, what is this money for, and they can't say, it's right here, we should tap the brakes. That's just good process. That's all I'm saying. I think we're on the same page, so yeah, let's get a vote going.
Thank you. Laura, would you call the roll, please, on suspension of rules?
Counselor Dobbs.
Yes.
Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett.
Yes.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Counselor Maori.
Yes.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Pastridge Clemmer.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
And Counselor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Rules have been suspended. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made by Counselor Moulton and seconded by Counselor Dobbs. Discussion on approval. I'll just say I appreciate all the work that the mayor's office did and counselors for their diligence. Roll call, please, on approval.
Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett.
Yes.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Counselor Maori.
Yes.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Pastridge Clemmer.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Counselor Rothenberg.
Yes.
And Counselor Dobbs.
Yes.
That passes.
We have a brief recess, please.
Yes, we'll do 5 minutes and then we will bring the Agricultural Commission. Thank you so much for waiting.
That was a doozy.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Mark.
Welcome back. We will move now back up the agenda to presentations. Then we have an introduction to the Agricultural Commission. We have here Representatives John Omasta, Rich Jace, and how do you say your last name? Jaski, and Fred Bedall. Please come on up and welcome.
Thank you for your patience.
Now ask your question.
All right.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for inviting us here. I'm basically here to kind of tell you why there's ag commissions, who's on the ag commissions, and some of the things we do. Basically, in the early 2000s, in the southeast part of the state, there were 4 communities that were getting problems with development clashing with farms. And so they didn't really feel they had a voice, so they formed commissions within these towns to act as a buffer and mediator, as a voice to the town, so they could kind of work the differences out between the development and the continuation of agriculture. This phenomena grew, and in 2005, Northampton, with Mary Ann LaBarge and Marilyn Richards and some others, enacted this program into Northampton, so that we're here as a voice of agriculture to work with the community, but also with the council. And so hopefully if you have agricultural issues, you'll come to us and hopefully we get some resolve. We have 7 members, 6 of us are farmers from around the city, and there's always the person that's the head of the Smith School Agriculture Department. So over the years, that person has changed, and we've had some fluctuation through farmers coming and going and stuff, some getting older and some moving, and then our golden or silver bullet is the liaison that we have with the planning board or planning office. Right now it's Tom Anise, and he only helps us a few hours a month, and we don't meet in the summer, so he's not there, but he makes us probably the most effective agricultural commission in the state. I mean, when we had a more active state commission, the person who was the president was in awe of what we could accomplish by just having that little bit of push. I mean, it's not a big position, it's a few hours a month maybe, but it just makes us far more effective. And so when we first came into existence, our first big thing was the Bean Allard farm up in Florence. Yeah. The rec department wanted that put in fields. There was a bunch of agricultural land there, and we worked with Grow Food Northampton, the rec department, and ourselves, and I think we came to a good compromise there where you've got good fields for everybody to use, but you've got a good active CSA up there in Crimson and Clover. You have different incubator farms, and you've got the organic community gardens up there. So I think that project really worked out well and for everybody. One of our things is to monitor open land within the city. There's about 6 or 7 parcels. We try to keep farmers there that are effective, or some kind of agricultural process there. I mean, there are some down in the meadows, there's some out in the western part of the city, and we work. Our last meeting of the year, we usually meet from September until April. The last meeting, we try to tour the different parcels and see what's happening there, and see if there's problems and how we can resolve them. Some we have. I think Somalians down in Mountain View. So I mean, we have an interpreter there. So I mean, there's a diverse people, but they're using the land in agriculture purpose, and that's what we're main thrust is to do. We've also dealt with or continually dealing with dual-use solar and the pros and cons of that, and how it affects things, and where it's effective and where it's not effective. We've had some of the city councilors there. Last September, we had the mayor there, along with the head of the DPW, to discuss the stormwater issues that people are having. And we've had other different councilors there at different times for different issues. So I mean, we're a fairly loosely based meeting. We invite anybody to come. Our next one is going to be next Tuesday and we always meet at Smith Folk Library. Some of the other things that we do that are, well, probably the big thing this year, not directly with the Ag Commission, but through Rich Jaski, who's a member of the Ag Commission, put on the the tractor parade in Florence, which was a dynamic hit, it seems. We've got very good reviews, and everybody's waiting for the next year. But probably our biggest concern, since we've been in there, is the meadows. It's probably the greatest asset that the city has. And, I mean, the resource that it provides is unbelievable, but there's issues in there all the time of different kinds. And so I'm going to let Rich talk about that, because he farms in the meadows and has a better understanding of it.
I'll be fairly quick. First of all, I want to thank all you city councilors, because I know every one of you support agriculture. I know you do. I can tell. We've seen you at our regional conferences, and they're getting to be very good. We've got some good speakers, and we really appreciate it. We're blessed here in the city of Northampton. We have Wook Park, we've got Childs Park, and we have the Northampton Meadows. 3,000 acres. We have the greatest farmland in New England, right here in Northampton. And I really believe strongly that as you come and go, we have you current members of the city council, but as the city council changes, et cetera, all of us here, city councilors and people in our city, should all try all we can do to protect that farmland. Farmers will come and go as well, but we need to protect that farmland. It's a gift. I don't think you can find a community that has that many acres in one place that we can have such successful farming. The soil down there goes very, very deep. I don't dare say how deep it goes. Now, you do know that we did have some flooding down there this year, and some of it was catastrophic. Unfortunately, that's the trouble when you farm in the meadows. You do lose fringes of that farmland to flooding. Keeping our fingers crossed, we hope that we won't have that happen again. John just touched on dual-use solar. I want all you councilors to be very aware of that, because I know, I think it's Carolyn Mish, I believe, I want to make sure I get the name right. Carolyn's also aware of that too, and I believe Wayne Fiden has helped a lot to leave some zoning in place on that. But the big companies that are proposing solar arrays and everything else like that could, at some point, look at the Northampton Meadows as a place where dual-use solar could have a place. We don't particularly want to see that happen if we can possibly help it. We're just an advisory commission. We do not, we can tell you guys what we think is the right thing to do. But just be aware that at some point that might happen. And that's a very, very important thing. We really would like to see that left in a farmable condition where we don't have to work around solar arrays and things like that. But again, I don't know what's in the future. It's something to think about. The other thing, I don't know if you guys know about it, and I don't think you do, but because of the salt being spread on Route 91 for the years and years that 91 has been there has been found to be saltwater contamination along the corridor of Route 91. Now, we don't know how bad it is, but we do know that there's some points that have been driven down there for irrigation, and there's salt water in the groundwater down there. Now, whether it comes and goes, we don't know. And I know you guys have got enough to do with our discussion we just heard about maintaining our Memorial Hall. But it'd be pretty interesting to find out how much pollution there would be down there. We have no funding in the Agricultural Commission. That would have to be something that would have to be funded. But if there is pollution going on down there, what's the future? What could happen down there? How much, damage could be done, to our groundwater and to the crops growing down there, okay? So those are two issues that we at the Agricultural Commission are watching, keeping our ears to the rail and trying to see, again, our job here on the Ag Commission is to sustain, support, and promote agriculture. That's been the thing from day one. And I really think all of us guys on the commission have done the best we can to try to do that, because believe me, in farming, there's not a big profit margin. When you guys go to the grocery store and you buy your food, you walk away and you say, my God, you know, how much more do we have to pay? Well, the farmers get just that much of that price that you're paying for food. And I'm not exaggerating. So again, I know every single one of you support agriculture. I know you do. And here in Northampton, we've got a special place. So I want to thank all of you, and we hope that you'll use us. Use us as a tool. You know, if you have something coming up with anything related to agriculture, we're here. That's what we're here to do, to help you guys, give you some information so you can make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions for the commissioners? Councilor Elkins.
I don't have a question, but I do want to know, and thank you for coming to our meeting tonight. The last time we, some of us heard from you was you came and spoke by Zoom, and the reason I was so excited to see you guys tonight and want to share is that you came to Community Resources by Zoom, and you were literally reporting in from your tractors. We were all treated to a discussion and information about the work that you guys are doing and your service to our community, and both your work in agriculture, but also your advocacy around the issues. And so I want to thank you for your involvement. It's probably too dark to have done this from your tractors tonight, but I really appreciated that, and thank you for coming to speak to the full council.
It's like farming. You'd rather do it in person than on a computer. So
that's right.
I can see faces. And probably one of our crowning achievements is a regional conference that we put on yearly, and we've had a few counselors there this year for this one. And I mean, it really brings together the agricultural community, because just because we have farms in Northampton, I mean, one of the members of our board is from Hadley, because he farms so much down in the meadow. So, I mean, he's part of this community, and the way farms are now, I mean, just because you own a farm someplace doesn't mean you're farming in other communities. So it really is a kind of an interlocking system.
When is your
other questions?
Yeah, when is your
Gothenburg.
Thank you. When is your meeting on Tuesdays?
7 o'clock at the Smith Folk Library.
Is it once a month? Once a week?
No, we once a month, September until March, and then the April meeting, we try to do a tour of some of the properties to see what's actually going on in those properties.
Is it first, second, third, fourth Tuesday? Which one?
It's usually the second, but because Tom is our component, sometimes he has conflicting issues. We're a little more flexible, but, you know, if we don't have him.
So we check the agenda center. We'll find you.
He posted on the website, the city website, because I mean, one time there was a Friday holiday, and so the meeting that we had wasn't official because it wasn't posted the amount of time needed. But it is on the city website, so.
Thank you.
You can go ahead if you want to add.
Interrupt you. One thing we're blessed with here is we have a planning department in the city of Northampton. And Tom Anisi, I think is the pronunciation. Well, anyways, because of support by the planning department, and John brought this up before, we try to help the surrounding communities with this regional conference that some of you attended this winter. And again, it's a great asset for us. So we try to help what we can with the other surrounding ag commissions in any way we can that way. So,
John,
Your microphone?
that you make tours going around and so forth in April?
Our meeting, we get a bus from Smith's Voc, and the members, we try to tour some of the different properties that are being actively used. Some of them, we're just having a hard time just because of the configuration of the land and the weather that we have. I mean, there's one down in the what do you call the other meadows? The Blyman property that, you know, has been used at different times, but because of flooding, I mean, there's a very small usage that's there on a consistent basis, so which makes it a very difficult piece of land to get farmers on.
I'm very concerned about Mr. Brakey's farm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how much of it is in Northampton? He's right on the line.
Right, but he's got some back.
I know. I mean, his son is doing stuff, but, you know.
Well,
right, ever since he passed away now, so I don't know what's going to become of that.
Again, there's an APR, agricultural preservation, what do you call it, John? Agricultural?
APR, yeah, agricultural preservation restriction.
APR.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, you get your land, they give you money, but that land has to stay open. I mean, we did that, so that ours will stay open no matter what happens to me and my son.
Right. Well, right now, on Florence Road, the Adams Farm, new owners.
The Bay Farm.
I've met them, and they're keeping it, all farming. And that, and I know the owner told my son and my husband about that, all farming.
Yeah, well, I mean.
And look at the job they're doing, cleaning it up.
And his footprint on farming, so it'd be nice to have him expand out, because the land was kind of getting overgrown.
Well, look at how they're cleaning that place up. Yeah.
Counselor
Yeah, just a process note for new counselors. So if you're working on something that's, you think might be related to anything about agriculture, really, or land or farming, the way to go about it would be to email Tom Anisi, who's kind of, they're kind of the admin for the group too, and so he would help get it on the agenda, and then you could go to a meeting and talk to them and kind of vet it before you get, you know.
Right, and then, I mean, our normal time is September to March, but I mean, we have met in the summer if an issue comes up that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
But because farming is more active in the summer and the days are longer and you need to be there, we don't normally schedule them, but I mean, if there's a need, we will come together.
At least you'll know what's happening. So
right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
To get up in 3 hours now?
All right, we're going to move back to the normal order of the agenda, so that would be announcements from counselors and the mayor.
Do my yoga from
Are there any announcements?
Oh, okay.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes. I will announce that City Services will be having a special meeting on March 18th at 4:30, only to deal with the two appointments that were referred to us last week. Those are appointments to the Human Rights Commission and the Historical Commission, and we hope to have those before the council on March 21st.
Thank you. Counselor Elkins.
I'm going to announce that there's not going to be a legislative matters meeting on Monday. It was on the calendar for a period of time, but as nothing has been referred to us, we don't have any business before us. So if you, I believe Laura pulled that down, but if you saw it, was wondering that if we were having one, we do not have any business before legislative matters, so there's no meeting on that day.
Thank you. Counselor LaBarre.
Yes, thank you. I just want to thank Fire Chief Andrew Peelis for the monthly department, the Northampton Fire Rescue Monthly Review. It is extremely helpful. And I've had residents who've been emailing me in regards about the amount of phone calls that they get. So I'm glad he's doing this.
Thank you. Counselor Maori.
Yeah, I was just going to say to the Finance Committee members, I'm going to be reaching out by email for with some date options for our next meeting. There's some timing that I'm trying to work on, so I'll hit you up by email.
Councilor Dubs.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to announce that on Friday, April 5th, All Out Adventures, the Northampton Disability Commission, and our community partners will be hosting a screening of the documentary film Go On, Be Brave, the incredible story of Andrea Lytle Pete, who was diagnosed at age 33 with ALS and set a goal for herself of riding her recumbent trike in a marathon in all 50 states. This fully accessible film screening will take place at the Northampton Center for the Arts. The doors are open for food and mingling at 5:15, followed by the screening of the documentary film at 6 p.m., followed by a discussion and more mingling at 8 p.m. Tickets are being offered at a sliding scale to ensure everyone can join, and you can learn more and get your tickets at bit.ly/BeBrave0405. And again, that's on Friday, April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pastor Comer.
Thank you. At the March 18th meeting of Community Resources, we're going to have 3 guest speakers. Empower will be there, Division of Community Care, and Dial Self-Housing. And it's at 5:30. I don't know if I said that.
Thank you. I will announce that the commemoration of the 65th anniversary of the Tibetan National Uprising is this Sunday, March 10th at 2:30 p.m. And I will be filling in for the mayor, who will be away, to help raise the Tibetan flag at Memorial Hall and the reading of the proclamation. And our representatives of the state and federal government will be there as well. Okay, seeing announcements. Yes.
Sorry, if you'll permit me, I'll take the economic development. So I think the mayor would want me to remind everyone, and you said that, or I think Councilor Perry said this last week, but Back Porch Festival will happen on March 15th and 16th. That's over 50 artists at 10 venues in downtown Northampton. It was a huge event last year and really filled downtown, so we're really looking forward to that. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I think it's still a little bit in the planning stage, I mean, in terms of exactly where it's going to be, but Bike to Work Week. There will be an event downtown on Wednesday, May 15th, and it has been in 33 Kings parking lot that they aggregate for a bike breakfast. I think they're looking at other locations, but that's coming later this spring. And then the other thing, I think it's kind of exciting, we had our first meeting with the people planning the Pride March, and they are getting going, and that will be on Star Wars Day, May 4th. So lots of exciting things coming. And we also learned that the Commonwealth is getting ready to pass the extension of their COVID-era allowances for outdoor dining in the very near future. So that dovetails nicely and is not going to be waiting for the Municipal Empowerment Act. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, back to presentations. Happy to announce the recognition of longtime service to the Disability Commission of Councilor Mary Ann Labarge. And this is a presentation by Councilor Jeremy Dubs.
Thank you. So the Disability Commission wrote a letter to Councilor Labarge, thanking her for all of her service for her many years on the commission, and I'd like to read that letter now. Councilor Mary Ann Labarge has been a tremendous asset and resource to the Disability Commission for many years. She has been an involved member, always present and engaged. She puts the needs of the disability community first by listening to constituents, identifying needs, and bringing the concerns to the attention of the Disability Commission and the City Council. She is both tenacious and caring, always willing to advocate on someone's behalf in order to get their needs met and help to make their life better. She has been a tireless advocate for her constituents and has had a special place for the residents of Florence Heights. Councilor Labarge has been a great resource to the Disability Commission, informing the conversations by sharing her intricate knowledge of city government and the history of local processes. Councilor Labarge went above and beyond on behalf of the Commission with a few standout accomplishments. She was part of the core group who completed Northampton's ADA Self-Assessment and Transition Plan in 2019, and part of this plan included the city hiring an ADA coordinator, a big asset for the city. She also worked with others to establish the Disability Commission to be responsible for revolving funds the city acquires through parking tickets in accessible spots. Most recently, she was instrumental in getting the City Council to pass a resolution to recognize June as Disability Pride Month in Northampton. Councilor LaBarge was instrumental in getting benches for people to rest on for the Center of Florence and one for the Senior Center. She worked with former Councilor Bill Dwight to create the ordinance requiring sidewalks to be shoveled. Thank you for your service, Councilor LaBarge, and we look forward to continuing to work together with you as City Councilor to serve the Northampton disability community.
Thank you all, and thank you.
Of course. And here's a letter for you to keep. Yeah. And that the letter is signed by Amy Sue.
See and hear a lot from me.
Okay, awesome. That letter is signed by Amy Sugihara, the chair, and Emma Cornwell, vice chair. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilor LaBarge.
Thank you.
Next, we come to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, well, it has been removed because it wasn't ready the minutes of February 21st, so that's not. There's just 24.020, appointments to Council on Aging and Northampton Housing Authority for referral to city services. To the Council on Aging, Robert Dion and Cynthia Langley, those are both reappointments. And to the Northampton Housing Authority, Marilyn Richards and Edgardo Cancel, both reappointments. Are there any removals from the consent agenda? Seeing none, motion to approve the
Move to approve.
Second it.
Motion made by Councilor LaBarge and seconded by Councilor Elkins. Roll call, please.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor LaBarge,
Yes.
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
Councilor Pastor-Clemmer,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg,
Yes.
Councilor Dobbs,
Yes.
and Councilor Elkins.
I think you just called me yes.
Great, so that passes unanimously. And when will those come to city services?
Those will be on the agenda for the April 1st meeting of city services.
Thank you. On to financial. First reading, 24.019, in order to authorize payment prior year bill. And the order is very short.
The heck?
The City Council authorized payment for prior fiscal year 2023 in the amount of $484 to CDW Government. Chief of Staff Wolf, are you here to speak to that?
Actually, Charlene Nardi would be the better person.
Okay.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. Yes, tonight I am asking for authorization to pay this prior year fiscal bill. It was the purchase of 4 monitors for the Parks and Rec Department. ITS, or the ITS department ordered the monitors, and there was a little bit of confusion about who was paying the invoice. Because we do a lot of ordering with CDW Government, we were not aware that this invoice was not paid until recently. So again, I am requesting that we be allowed to pay this $484.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? And we would be looking for either a motion to the consent agenda of our next meeting or to a referral to finance.
I would refer it to the consent agenda.
I second that.
Motion made by Councilor Moulton and seconded by Councilor LaBarge to refer it to the consent agenda. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor LaBarge,
Yes.
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
Councilor Pastor-Clemmer,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg,
Yes.
Councilor Dobbs,
Yes.
and Councilor Elkins. I see my
Yes.
microphone is off.
Okay.
And Councilor Jarrett.
Oh,
Did I call you?
yes. Is that everyone?
That is everyone.
Okay, passes unanimously and it will appear at our March 21st meeting. 24.022, in order to appropriate $65,000 free cash to economic development projects and initiatives in first reading. And would you like us to read this? Would you like to present to it?
Well, we talked about it a little bit last time. I'm happy to read. I read quickly if you want. Or honestly, if you've all read it, I don't know that you need to read it into the record. I feel like you let me do the whole presentation last time, for which I was incredibly grateful.
So this is a different item. That's coming next. The order temporarily suspending the effects is the one in second reading. So this is the $65,000 for economic development projects.
I'm sorry. Did I not go? Oh, sure. Maybe we should read it. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Whereas the city identified as part of COVID-19 economic recovery planning that the activation of economic development projects goes a long way in continuing economic activity, including a return to pre-pandemic levels of revenues for hotel motel tax and meals tax. And whereas the Department of Revenue reported that Northampton's local receipts made up 17.32% of the city's general fund revenue in 2023, amounting to $20,208,898, based on the fiscal year 2024 budget of $116,679,550. Initiatives from our economic development, arts and culture, I just lost it.
Screen shared.
Let's see here. There we go. Initiatives from our Economic Development, Arts and Culture Department significantly boost these receipts. I'm going to go to my own version. Okay. While economic development investment does not cover all local receipt gains, this specific investment effort amounts to only 0.033% of the total. Conservatively assuming this investment impacts just 10% of the overall receipts, it results in a remarkable return on investment of approximately 3,010%. This return on investment is crucial for funding Northampton schools, public safety, public works, and other vital services. Whereas as we continue to work to help the city recover from the pandemic, it's been critical for the economic development team to have resources available for general economic development activities. And whereas the city will be asked to partner with the Downtown Northampton Association and the Greater Northampton Chamber of Commerce on various economic development initiatives, such as Summer on Strong, The Taste, and the Back Porch Festival, and will also create, support, innovate, and implement myriad kinds of economic initiatives such as Bands on Brewster, Masonic Street Live, and Florence Concert Series, and outdoor dining. And whereas the city will begin to accept letters of intent from eligible applicants interested in taking advantage of the vacant storefront program and subsequently issue 2 $10,000 matching grants for state tax credits to qualifying applicants. And whereas the city claimed $10 million in lost revenue replacement from the city's ARPA funds to replace a reduction in local receipts revenue resulting from the pandemic, which increased the city's undesignated fund balance. Directing some of these funds toward economic development projects represents an excellent return on investment, helps to foster a sense of community, supports cultural tourism, and helps to ensure that local receipts revenue will continue to rebound and grow to support all of the services, initiatives, and infrastructure that Northampton residents expect from their government. Now, therefore, be it ordered, the sum of $65,000 be appropriated from the fiscal year 2024 general fund undesignated fund balance, free cash, for economic development projects and initiatives. And do you or Director Nardi want to speak to it at all further?
Hopefully this is an easy one for you all. I mean, tried to lay out there. I mean, we get a lot of bang for these relatively budgetary small dollars. The $20,000 of this $60,000 is our commitment to the vacant storefront program. So that's $10,000 each in matching funds to two businesses that are occupying empty storefronts. And we've already had a bunch of applicants for that program, but obviously needed to secure this funding to do it. And then the other things are things you well know. It's the planters full of dirt. It's supporting music on Summer on Strong. It's bands on Brewster. It's Masonic Street Live. It's salsa in the park. Let me make sure I'm not leaving out any great things. It's concerts in Florence. We were a supporter on the Porch Festival in Florence last year. It allows us to do things like set up the electrical for the Taste of Northampton event, and also to support the Taste of Northampton entertainment. All of these things designed to bring people downtown that then supports all of the businesses, arts, and restaurants and entertainment that happens there. So I hope you can support this relatively modest amount of money that allows us to do so much.
Thank you. Questions? I would look for yes, Councilor Perry.
Sorry
about
I don't have a question, but I do have a statement, and I just want to say that I'm always heartened to see that the city is looking to spend money towards arts and entertainment, because community is important to us. In the last few years, I have been thankful that our meals and hotel tax revenue has rebounded, but our arts and entertainment industries are still, I think, lagging. If I could, I would designate more money. I'd love that the city has stepped up to help expand Summer on Strong, to do things like bands on Brewster. But I could see, there's still more that can be done for those. But I do want to thank Alan Wolf and Annie Lesko for really taking the charge and seeing how important it is to kind of stabilize our city as we are trying to recreate our nightlife and hopefully wait as things like the Iron Horse or the Cow come on board. These outdoor events, this economic development has been really important to helping us make through the pandemic and into the future of Northampton. So thank you.
Thank you.
Go
ahead.
Move to refer to the consent agenda.
Second it.
Motion made by Councilor Maori, seconded by Councilor Labarge to refer to the consent agenda. Any discussion? I'll just say I really appreciate the figures and the ideas of the economic multiplier, and I see very much how, we're bringing people in, and I love hearing about all the events that are happening and coming to some of them. So seeing none, roll call please on referral.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Pastridge-Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
And Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. It'll be on our March 21st meeting agenda. On to orders. In second reading, 24.015, an order temporarily suspending the effect of certain ordinances. And so this was brought up at our February 21st special meeting in first reading. Anyone like any Chief of Staff Wolf or Director Nardi, would you like to speak any further to it?
Charlene, by all means, I hope I made the case last time. I tried to do it at high speed, but hopefully it sank in, and it's incredibly important. It's actually existential for outdoor dining, so I hope you can support that. Thank you.
Councilors?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Perry and seconded by Councilor Pastridge-Clemmer to approve. Discussion on approval? I'm excited for it. Roll call, please.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Pastridge-Clemmer.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Councilor Dobbs.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge,
Yes.
and Councilor Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Now we come to the final item on our agenda, discussion around possible changes to meeting start time, 6:30 PM, question mark. So I've heard from councilors that there's interest in this. And, sorry, what am I missing?
I didn't want the chief of staff to leave before, unless you have talked to, I'm curious about how that would impact department heads and the staff.
Yes.
I just wanted to know that.
Okay, thanks. So, yeah, there's interest from counselors in discussing this. And I would just say that, we would want to have a lot of lead time in any change to make sure that people understood about the new start time if we did change it. So, counselors.
So the school committee starts at 6:30, correct?
I believe so.
Right? Oh.
Yeah, they do.
They do. Yeah, I mean, my thought on this is, I certainly can do the 7. The half hour at night, to have the half hour at night, gained, I would support that for folks who have to work early like I do. So it's only a half hour, but I think it makes a difference at night, the difference between getting home at like 11 versus 10:30, or 11:30 versus midnight, and without being a radical change. But I really would like to hear, what everyone's situation is, and also we have to think about department heads and supporting staff that might be joining us. But for me, it would kind of it would help support those of us who, work during the day.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes, I want to echo what Councilor Mayor is saying, and I've always had great concerns if our agenda is really full. And we have department heads who are just on there waiting and waiting for their turn. And I'll never forget with Carolyn Mesh, 10 o'clock at night. She works all day. All our department heads work all day. And to me, I think doing that 6:30 makes a difference to me and the department heads, plus with open public session. All right, here we're going almost 90 minutes for a public session for the public. And we would be starting probably just about 25 after 7 on our agenda. And I agree with what I just heard the Councilor Mayor just stated. We'd be out of here at a decent time. Families do have children or whatever, and people have to get up and go to work. And I know some councilors do have to get up and go to work. So that's either which way, but I think that 6:30, I'm in favor of that.
Councilor Elkins.
I think I'm in favor of moving a little earlier too. And I am one of those people who have to get up and go to work. But I also think it would be beneficial for more of our work to be earlier in terms of the public and folks seeing, the more tedious stuff that we do. I think sometimes there's a perception that city that council meetings are just public comment.
I've heard that too.
Lots of folks, tune in for that and feel like that's where the fireworks are, but then, in fact, come and call for us to do work or to do things and then leave before we actually, debate the things that they've come to speak with us about. So, I think maybe a little earlier might help that, might make it a little more accessible. The less sexy things that we do.
Yeah. I just want to say that clearly my filter comes off at a certain hour. We've got to avoid that.
Yeah, I'm cranky.
Crazy.
Other discussion? From the mayor's office?
I think department heads would applaud this move. I share what was said earlier, that sometimes they are here late. And we recognize that this is the work we have all chosen and you all ran for office for. It's wonderful. Thank you. But it would be great if we backed it up even a half hour. I think it would make a difference for some people.
I note the department head who is here the most often is turned her camera on to nod her head.
I know.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So the next step would be for someone to bring a proposal to modify the time and to a future meeting.
It's not just a consensus thing.
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, so it's not like a consensus thing, but like when we've talked about hybrid, we have to make an order to vote on? Yeah.
Well, we have an order that we voted on, right, that establishes the dates and times of the meeting. So we would be amending that order?
Yeah.
It can.
Yeah.
Deciding when it would start.
Right. Okay, seeing no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, sorry, who moved that?
We said it simultaneously.
You
I said move to adjourn,
Okay.
and she seconded it.
We're really in sync here.
Yeah, it's a
By
practical.
Councilor Mayor, seconded by Councilor Pastridge. Primer, roll call, please.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Pastridge.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Counselor Rothenberg.
Yes.
Counselor Dobbs.
Yes.
Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett.
Yes.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Counselor Mailer.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Thank y'all. Good night. I look forward to more than 2 meetings in a row without sick. So